you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Well, we'd have to stay with the Bush family.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Smith Radio. I am your host, the sole host this week, Kerry Smith. Brian Smith had to fill in for our producer this week. He's got the stomach flu or something, so he's gonna be. He's got something that I guess it would be called unmentionables. So we will
blood coming out of her. Wherever.
Wow. So Brian's going to be being trigger happy on the buttons today, apparently. He's going to be having fun with it, and I will go ahead and be the voice for this week, and we'll be back to normal next week. So what do we got this week? I mean, it's August 23rd, 2015. A lot of no huge events this week, but a whole bunch of a lot of fun topics to talk about. I can't wait to get into it. Of course, more Trump stuff, immigration stuff, anchor babies. I mean, yeah, immigration is a big topic this week, and Planned Parenthood. We cannot let this subject die. We cannot, period. And it's one of those things where, and I've said this on the show before, I feel like, if you know anything about, American history, the Uncle Tom's Cabin book that came out back in the 1800s was like a big expose of slavery that led to, as it was selling and people were reading it and it was causing outrage among the public, it kind of was the catalyst to eventually lead to the election of the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln, which then led to a war that, and pretty much freed the slaves for the most part. And I feel like this undercover videoing of exposing what Planned Parenthood is, which is the pretty much ground zero of the American Holocaust for the most part.
What difference at this point does it make?
That's an unrelated soundbite, but it does make a difference. It's the American Holocaust. So Hillary, even though she wasn't talking about that, it does make a difference. So what else are we talking about? What happened in Chicago this week? Police? Oh, well, shootings in Chicago. It's going to happen. I need to do a little bit of Deez. All right. So what happened in Paris? Gunman opened fire. Oh yeah, there was a shooting in Paris. Oh, the Ashley Madison. Somebody said something about the Ashley Madison hacking that was very interesting. The timing is interesting.
Rush said it was going to crush people's lives.
Well, that's true. Mr. Producer's talking about it crushing people's lives. Brian is Mr. Producer today, so. But yeah, the thing about Ashley Madison, if you don't know what it is, and there's probably quite a few people that listen to this show that have no idea what Ashley Madison is. You know how there's dating websites out there? Well, this is a dating website, but all the different dating websites are almost like their own genre. Like you could have one that's for singles that are just looking for, some, I would say, not committed relationships. There's like Christian Mingle where it's geared specifically to Christians. And so there's all these different genres of dating sites. Ashley Madison is a dating site that is geared specifically towards married people. So you can imagine how controversial it is, first of all, and second of all, that you wouldn't want to be discovered using Ashley Madison ever. But apparently, there's a hack of the Ashley Madison website, and in the hacking, it's going to release to whoever hacked it information such as the user's information, names, and what they do, all credit card information, which, anytime you hack a business on the internet, that takes money. You're going to get credit card information, maybe more. Obviously, you're not going to get stuff like Social Security numbers off of an Ashley Madison. But the thing is that a lot of government officials use Ashley Madison apparently, and the problem with especially like elected officials who have any kind of power whatsoever, that opens them up to being blackmailed. And we don't want our government officials being blackmailed, especially if they are in charge of policy, international policy. Could you imagine somebody like Secretary of State, let's say, uses Ashley Madison. They get hacked. All of a sudden, you got Russian agents saying, hey, we know what you're doing, and we want you to do this, this, and this. And all of a sudden, we got an international incident. So they got hacked. What else are we talking about? Obama botches a Bible quote? What? Am I surprised? I mean, this is a guy who, I don't know. He could hate Christianity. Not sure. There's a lot of people that have called him Muslim. He has a Muslim-sounding name, or I should say it would be a name that's popular in the Islamic culture. So, yeah.
And I think good book says, don't throw stones in glass houses, or make sure we're looking at the log in our eye before we're pointing out the mote in other folks' eyes. And I think that's as true in politics as it is in life.
That sounds painfully like that botched quote that Bush had back in the day when he said, fool me once, shame on... yeah. What was his actual quote? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, you can't fool... Yeah, you can't fool me again. And he got so much crap for that. For years, it was always brought up over and over. And here you got Obama. It's supposed to be, if you're going to, if you live in a glass house, don't throw stones. So he said, what did he say? Don't throw stones in a glass house or something like that. What is he talking about? And then the log in the eye. I have no idea. I don't even know what I don't even know what the original quote is, but that doesn't sound right. But wow, what was he talking? Okay, so that's hilarious. Iran. The big thing about Iran this week is it's just like you got to pass it before you know what's in it with Obamacare. Here they are, they make this Iran deal, and we're going to be hearing more and more and more about how bad this deal is as experts, journalists, and whatever come out and discover new things that make this such a bad deal. So we'll talk about that a little bit. And Hillary has a Snapchat comment. Oh, how many comments does she make? That is just terrible. Oh.
You may have seen that I recently launched a Snapchat account. I love it. Those messages disappear all by themselves.
Oh, no, she didn't. She's literally joking about what she did that is completely illegal. And hopefully, if there's any justice in the United States, she will spend time in prison. There have been people all week on talk radio, Fox News, and all these other places who were in the intelligence field, who were commenting on what had happened with her. And all of them say the same thing. They say, God, if I did something like that, I would be in the brig for a long time. I'd be in prison for a long time. And here she does it. And they're not even being very vigilant about pursuing justice or at least fact-finding and figuring out if she did actually break the law. Or, I mean, everybody knows she did. It's just a matter of proving it. And that's where we are right now with the whole Servergate scandal is what can we prove? And she's literally making a mockery of it with that comment.
Mark Levin was talking with Sean Hansen.
So,
if you want that clip, Mark Levin.
Oh, well, let's start from the top. I just wanted to summarize everything we want to talk about. Yeah, you can't hear the producer. I'm starting to sound like Rush Limbaugh with the way he's like, "What? What'd you say? Huh? Oh, Snurdly's in there," and then he has to repeat what he says and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully we don't do that too much. But immigration, I mean, these first three topics are all kind of part and parcel of the same general thing. You got Trump making all kinds of comments all week, either defending his position or making new policy position statements, and a lot of it is revolved around immigration. And do we have any sound bites on that? And Mark Levin even brings up the anchor baby thing. So let's hear. Do you have any on?
Got 4 sound bites.
All right. Well, let me just say this. The whole thing about Donald Trump, to me, this is huge because my whole life, I never really dug in and really sorted out exactly what all of the amendments and all the wording of the Constitution, what they mean when you read them and what the founders meant. And I never really studied it all, but, I understand the gist of it, or at least I thought I did. The 14th Amendment, I thought, and everybody, a vast majority of Americans have this idea, and even when I first read it recently, I thought I had it right, and it turns out I might have it wrong. So the 14th Amendment was drawn up because there was a big debate back when all the slaves were emancipated as to whether or not they would be American citizens or not. And there were a lot of people that were trying to argue that, well, no, they aren't American citizens. And then the question is, well, then do they ever get to be American citizens? And what do we do about this? And of course, there were some that were like, well, they were born here, their parents were born here, their grandparents were born here, and now they're freed. Of course, they should be citizens. And then finally, they write the 14th Amendment. And so it seems like the 14th Amendment was so poorly written. This is my first take when I first read it. When I first read it, my first thought was, this is so poorly written that there's a giant loophole. It's like they didn't realize that one day immigrants were going to be able to abuse this. And turns out Trump comes out and says what I thought was completely wrong, just based on my limited knowledge of reading the 14th Amendment. And then there was an elaboration on it, and it turns out there might be something to it. So the 14th Amendment, getting past... Okay, so no country in the world allows anchor babies. That's first and foremost. But so the 14th Amendment basically says, if I can find the actual text here, I want to get the whole text so we make sure that we're right. I'm going to find it on my stack here. And we have all right, there's several parts to it. And, man, there's a lot written about it. Okay, so all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. And that's the first sentence. And when I first read this, I assumed that the part that says, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, meant that as long as you're under the law of wherever you were born in, then you are an American citizen. If you're born on soil and subject to the laws, when I hear the word jurisdiction thereof, the thing is back when some of these amendments were written, the language was kind of different, and we always harp on words having meanings and stuff like that. And over the years, people kind of, what happens is people use a word a certain way that might not be 100% correct, and then it gets popular. And then as the popularity of that new usage of the word gets to a certain point, then Webster or something will come out, and they'll either add an additional definition to a word that previously was not there, or they may just change the definition completely. And so that might be the issue with the jurisdiction thereof. Yeah, that is very, very important. So anyway, we'll talk about Deez nuts later, and that is very important. It was funny. I was on the phone with the producer's wife earlier, and she said, "Is this a joke? You guys are going to be talking about Deez nuts. Is this a joke? It sounds like a joke." And my first thought was, yeah, that's a joke. And I said, wait a minute. No, it's not a joke. But we'll get to that later. It actually is not a joke. We will be talking about Deez nuts, and it will not be a joke. It will be serious. So anyway, it turns out that the phrase or the part of the sentence "subject to the jurisdiction thereof" means that it was included in there so that if you have ambassadors or other people visiting or have official business in America who are not loyal citizens of the United States, they're loyal to their home country because they're citizens of their home country. When they have a child in let's say the embassy, and it was born on U.S. soil because they're in America, that child should not be a citizen. So that's what that wording means, which, I didn't get that at first. And I'm sure a vast majority of Americans in today that read this made the same mistake I did. So then when Trump comes out and says, these anchor babies are not citizens, they shouldn't be citizens, they're not legally citizens, and I'm going to make that case, I remember thinking to myself, oh boy, here we go. I don't think this is going to work, and it's going to make him look stupid, and it's, whatever. And sure enough, you read some of the articles that come out about his case and Ben Carson. Ben Carson agrees with Donald Trump about the usage of the word, and then somebody came out with the context of the 14th Amendment, and which basically was written by the author of the 14th Amendment, and he said that it was not intended for foreign people to come here for whatever reason, have a child, and then that child be automatically a citizen just because it was born on U.S. soil. That's why he wrote that part of it. Yeah, go ahead. Let's listen to what Mark Levin has to say about it.
Look, I have been looking into this, talking about this for years, long before this presidential cycle. Of course, Trump is right, and Cruz is right, and Sessions is right. They're all right. And to hear so-called constitutional conservatives trip all over themselves to sound like liberals, to rewrite this provision and accuse those of us who actually know something about it, know the history about it, know the senators who were involved in it, know what went into it, know what was meant by it, that we're the activists, that we're the extremists. Look, if you want a policy of open borders, that anybody born here should become a United States citizen, you amend the Constitution. We don't have to amend the Constitution. It says what we say it says, and by statute, going forward, prospectively, Congress can, in fact, say, we want to emphasize to this federal government, to this president, no, you cannot make children of illegal aliens American citizens automatically.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, he pretty much stated, first of all, if you don't know, Mark Levin is a giant when it comes to knowledge of the Constitution. He really knows it. I believe he may have even taught it at university, but he's the go-to guy when it comes to constitutional questions. He knows he has the Federalist Papers probably memorized verbatim, which is the background context to the Constitution. So the Federalist Papers were basically the debate that went into what should be in the Constitution, how it should be written and all that kind of stuff. And Mark Levin knows all that stuff backwards and forwards, and it's so important to know the context of why they write each of the amendments, all the articles of the Constitution. If you don't know anything about the people and the debate that went into that preceded the writing of the Constitution, it could definitely be wide open for different interpretations. But the bottom line is you should interpret it the way the founders intended. And maybe they should have wrote more words and sentences and paragraphs to describe in the actual articles and amendments more deeply what they meant, because there's a lot of liberals out there and communists who want to take over America and turn it into a socialist utopia, and they want to. Sorry about that. We got a little technical difficulties. They want to interpret it in a way that will further their agenda, which is not what the founders intended. So the 14th Amendment, according to Mark Levin, Donald Trump is the first one to bring it up. And, of course, whatever happens to Donald Trump, Glenn Beck, who a lot of people are really mad at right now, him and his friends have come out and said, well, I don't know if he'll make it or not, but here's my prediction. When he finally loses, he's going to say, well, that's okay. I wasn't really trying to win anyway. I just wanted to raise awareness of these issues that you would have never heard about if it wasn't for my presidential run. And he's going to point out that nobody's talking about the immigration, nobody's talking about the border, and I did that, and that's my contribution to this election cycle. If he doesn't win, I think it will just fall into obscurity, and then the pundits will come out and say, you see, when a crazy comes out and talks about the illegal immigration situation, the border, you lose just like Donald does, and that's what the pundits are going to say.
I've got a clip on Donald.
Oh, we got a clip for Donald Trump.
Trump's message could hurt the GOP with Hispanic voters.
Look, it's the language is pretty vitriolic for sure.
We asked Trump about a phrase he's using more and more, anchor babies, to describe children of undocumented immigrants born in the U.S. Trump says the parents have the child, so they're not deported.
That's an offensive term. People find that hurtful.
You mean it's not politically correct, and yet everybody uses it?
Look it up in the dictionary. It's offensive.
I'll use the word anchor baby. Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
There you go. There you go. And here's the thing. Okay, you know what? There are words. You know, if you listen to, it could be news reports, it could be movies, or read newspaper articles from back in the 60s, 50s, 40s, 30s, and go all the way back. There are things that they say, and you could tell by the way they say it and the way they are acting when they say it, that what they're saying is normal. It's everyday language. And today's standard, you would be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I mean, listen to Lyndon Johnson. He says Negro all the time when he's referring to black people. That's because that's what they were called. Well, here's the thing. With the way progressives are with offensive language, it never stops. If we keep letting progressives define the language and what is and is not offensive, and we let them get away with it by complying with their demands to stop using certain language, then, 50 years from now, we'll be talking completely different speech. We won't even understand what was written today in 50 years because all the words will be different. You look back and be like, what did they mean when they did this? I don't know. What did they write about it? Well, I'm reading it, but I can't believe how offensive it is. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, what are we doing here? We can't. So anchor babies. Whatever. It's not. It is kind of funny though, because every time I hear it, I think of a baby tied to a chain and somebody swinging it in a circle around their head and then chucking it. And of course, you're not in the ocean because you're in the desert, the Mojave Desert, crossing the border, and it like lodging into the sand on the American side so that you can't go anywhere. You're stuck.
There was a Bugs Bunny episode. He put a diaper on an anchor and dropped it on Yosemite Sam.
Oh, that's weird. So Mr. Producer tells me that that Bugs Bunny put a diaper on an anchor. Oh, made it look like a baby. So what? Yosemite Sam, he thought that he could catch it because it was a baby. That's a good idea. How do we not have that image? Or do you have it? Oh man, we are going to have to post that on Sick Bias or something. Oh, that is so funny. Well, I've never seen it. I don't think I've ever seen that episode. They put a diaper on an anchor, which, by the way, don't be offended. A bonnet on the anchor. Are you sure it wasn't an anvil? It was an anchor?
But they were on a ship.
So it has to be an anchor because they were on a ship. Oh man, that is funny. We need to find that clip and put it up somewhere. So. Okay, so Karl Rove is blasting Trump on immigration. First of all, Karl Rove blasting anybody on the running. Look, here's the way I figure. Look, we're constitutional conservative libertarians here at Smith Radio. That's what we are. Karl Rove is the quintessential establishment Republican. His philosophy is, first of all, you have to play ball. If you're a Republican, you have to go in glad hand. And you have to take the money, and you have to agree to the demands of those that give you money, and promise to do all the dopey stuff that they demand that you do in order to receive millions of dollars for your campaign. And also, it's a win-at-all-cost thing, which is okay in some cases, but at the end of the day, you can't go beyond your principles. And as far as I'm concerned, that's just a bad thing. If you can't just say, well, I'm going to go against my conservative principles because in the long run, we make more ground. Here's what he does not understand. It's not just him. It's all establishment Republicans. And I wish I could give it a very precise example, but like immigration. Here's a perfect example. On immigration, they're like, hey, listen, we got our base, but we need to add more Hispanic voters. Okay, we need to add more. If we go soft on immigration, don't talk about anything other than amnesty or a pathway to citizenship or whatever, we'll get those. We'll definitely nothing about deportation or anything like that. Don't say anything like that. And if anybody even asks, just say no. We're not going to do that because there's bigger fish to fry. We can go ahead and allow that issue to go to the Democrat side of as far as or we're going to agree with the Democrats on that so that the Democrats can't make it an issue, because if they do make it an issue, they're going to get all the Hispanic vote. That's their attitude. But here's the problem. Number one, you don't Brian has shown me the photograph of the anchor baby on Bugs Bunny. Oh, wow. That is something you will not see on the Cartoon Network. Because, yeah, that is not... Wow. That is an anchor baby. It is a baby that is an anchor. And he is dropping it off the side of the boat. Oh, wow. That is hilarious. He didn't just put a diaper on an anchor. It has a dress on it and everything. He even put lipstick to make it look like a mouth.
That's his tongue.
Oh, a tongue? Okay. All right. Well, anyway, if you have a chance to look it up, it's called Mutiny on the Bunny. That's the name of the cartoon. So go to YouTube and look at Mutiny on the Bunny. From the 50s. They'll find it if they put Mutiny on the Bunny. Just Google that. I'm sure you'll find it right away. Wow, that's an anchor baby right there. Okay. So, where was I? Karl Rove. So the problem is, here's where the establishment Republicans get it so wrong. First of all, there's several problems here. Number one, we're pretty sure, not 100% sure, but pretty sure that we're not going to get enough of the Latino vote to matter. Even if a majority of them were like, hey, you know what? Now that I see Republicans are going soft on immigration, they're doing a pathway to citizenship, they're doing amnesty, you know what? I'm going to go with the Republicans. We're going to vote Republican. Even if a majority went that way and did that, it wouldn't offset what you're going to lose out of your base. And even if, now, granted, the base is not going to say, well, I'm voting for Obama. That's not going to happen. But here's what is going to happen. they're going to not vote for Romney because they're not going to show up. And that's the kind of stupid establishment stuff that happens. And I don't know why Karl Rove, Lindsey Graham, and Mitch McConnell, and all these rhinos do not get it. They don't get that if you just focus on really firing up your base, there's two things that are going to happen. Number one, your base is going to be excited and churn out in droves, which is cool. That's fine. But here's what else is going to happen. We win the debate on issues against liberals. We do. All you have to do is get into a policy debate with a liberal, and they can't win because they're all about emotion. They're all about just whatever feels right. But as soon as you start to say, look, this doesn't work, it has never worked, and they can't explain how they're going to get it to work. We're talking about progressivism and communism. Conservatives can show you where it's worked before in the past, show you who was in charge when it worked, tell you how they're going to fix whatever's not working in a conservative way to make it work. You're going to get crossover votes of moderates who are interested in finding out who can win a debate. I was completely down the middle during Gore versus Bush, the very first election with George W. Bush. I was right down the middle. I was fresh out of the Marine Corps. I was in college, surrounded by progressives, but I was very independent-minded. I was like, hey, convince me that you're the one that should be our president. So I watched all three debates very, very, very closely, and I wanted to hear whose ideas and arguments made the most sense. And if it made the most sense, I was going to go with that person, the one that's most logical, the one that can show me that their ideas are better based on either historical examples or other leaders that have done it and worked, or whether it just sounded logical. And Bush, as far as I was concerned, beat Gore in all three debates based on that criteria. And I was right down the middle. I could have went with Gore had Gore and his crazy liberal policies made sense to me. If it sounded like it would work, and there were historic examples of it working, I would have said, you know what? Gore won the debate, so I'm going to vote for Gore. That's where I was in 2000. That's where I was mentally. That's where I was ideologically, and everything else. And I went with Bush based on that criteria. If anybody comes along and goes a conservative route and can articulate the conservative ideology to everybody, I think we're going to get plenty of Hispanic votes. We don't need to give them goodies and benefits and let me shower you with money. All you have to do is say, hey, that's not our role, and it's not good for the country. And if it's not good for the country, it's not good for you because this is your country. And you don't want to be in a country where the leaders are doing the wrong things or dumb things or things that are going to hurt your country. I mean, it would be like, okay, everybody understands loyalty to a sports team, right? I mean, over here in Cincinnati, it's the Reds or the Bengals. I mean, imagine if you had a general manager or an owner. In fact, we do it in the Bengals, who are just doing, Mike Brown, the owner of the Bengals, who are just doing things that, I don't know, somehow clearly not logical to anybody that knows football and not the best thing, destroying it. But I don't know, maybe it earns him more money or something. Maybe he could sell off all his best players and make some deals that somehow helps his bottom line personally. But as a sports fan, we're all like, what are you doing? We're going to have a losing season now. Or again, Mr. Producer, again. Well, that's because Mike Brown's in charge. And if we had elections, he would have been booted out a long time ago. We should be allowed to impeach him. So, so whatever sports team is your sports team, how would you feel if you got two guys, A and B, who are in charge? One guy says, hey, I'm going to sell off all our best players, or I'm going to draft this one guy because I think that he has more appeal to a certain demographic, so we'll sell more tickets, whatever. Something like that. And then you got this other guy that's like, look, we need an offensive line. This is going to be our future, and we're going to make the most unstoppable offensive line. We're going to give 15 seconds to our quarterback every play. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just going to surround him, and he'll just have all the time in the world. You got wide receivers in the end zone jumping up and down, waving their arms. You know what I'm saying? Like, that kind of offensive line.
Special automatic deflating balls.
Yeah, that would be a technology we could bring up. He said special balls that automatically deflate. Wow. Wait, are we in New England? I didn't realize. No? Too soon? So anyway, the question is, would you go with the guy that wants to build a franchise team that's going to be a dynasty over time and do the right things that the experts in football, and I'm talking wins and losses here, are the right things to get the wins, to get to the playoffs, to win the playoffs, to win the Super Bowl? Or would you get some guy that is doing he's doing all the wrong things, and he's either incompetent or he's just like, hey, this helps my bottom line? You would pick the guy that wants to win games. And so my question, or I shouldn't say my question, my statement is, if you're a conservative, go out there and sell conservatism and be unapologetic about it. We shouldn't be worried about pandering to a tiny little demographic because they have a big voice. You know why they have a big voice? Because they are part of the left, and the left knows how to make a big voice. They're a small little minority,
Oh, y'all.
And honestly, illegal immigrants, or especially legal immigrants, when they hear why it's important to shut down the border and why it's important by doing it to make a better country. These are legal immigrants. They might be citizens that started off as just immigrants and then they became citizens going through the legal process. These are people that probably love America. And as a lover of America, when they hear stuff about letting anybody cross the border, which is hurting us, hurting our education system, because the schools are packed full of kids that don't even know English. They got teachers in there who don't know Spanish, who can't teach these kids, and it just turns into a big mess. And they don't fail them. They don't say, okay, well, he didn't do anything this year because he doesn't know English, but I'm not going to fail my whole class. So they end up passing them on, and the whole thing is just a mess. Legal immigrants are going to hear that argument and say, yeah, we need a better country, a stronger country. We need to make a coherent immigration policy, and we need to start by securing the border, building a wall, as Trump says, or whatever he wants to do. And I have to crack up laughing when people talk about comparing it to the Berlin Wall. The liberals this week are like, this isn't Berlin. Well, let me tell you something. We're not East Germany. Mexico is East Germany. We're West Germany. And here's the problem. While we wanted the East Germans to come over to the West Berlin part through the wall, risk their life, we were okay with that. It was East Berlin, a.k.a. Communist Russia, who built that wall to keep them from coming over. All right? And so we're building it to keep people out, and it's important. And this racism argument is just ridiculous. You can't fall for this anymore. Stop falling for this racism. Do you know the Tea Party movement, which was huge? What was it 2010? It was. This was before Obamacare passed, and before it passed, we were so worried about it bankrupting America. It changed the mid-elections, the 2010 elections. Oh yeah, the Tea Party won the 2010 elections for conservatives and Republicans, whatever. And but anyway, that movement was completely halted by Democrats who found a video clip of Tea Party guys screaming at Democrat elected officials as they were walking through. And at least one of them, maybe more, I don't know, but one in particular was an old black gentleman. He was the main guy coming through. That was the elected official, Democrat. And the Democrats took that video clip and said, look at these guys. They were screaming the N-word and they were spitting on him. And both of them were never, there was never a tiniest shred of evidence that either of those things happened. And we're talking video clips here. There was nothing in that video anywhere that showed any kind of spit or projectiles coming out of anybody's mouth, nor was there any indication that anybody used the N-word whatsoever in any part of the sound of that video. So they were lying, but in the meantime, while the accusations were flying, all the Tea Party people who were just normal, everyday people with jobs who they could worry about getting fired if they were a part of something where people were yelling the N-word and spitting on black elected officials. So they were worried. It shut it down. All the Tea Party people just cowered down into the corner and back into the shadows, and all of a sudden there weren't anybody nobody was proud to be a part of that movement anymore. And Glenn Beck did nothing to salvage it. He actually jumped on the bandwagon of those that were cowering in the corner, even though I'll give him credit, he was a big part of growing it, but he's one of the his reaction to all that and his inability to see what was happening and to counteract it also ended up preventing it from pretty much dissipating for the most part. There were people with yard signs in their yard that said Tea Party, Cincinnati. Now people are scared to put a Tea Party sign in their yard. Like, oh my gosh. So the thing is, getting back to the immigration thing, you cannot let them get away with that. If they call you a racist, immediately you say, how? Tell me how I'm being a racist. And of course, they'll throw something out there. What would be ideal is if they were honest and said, well, you know what I mean, which is meaning that they lied. Or if they get specific, you got to challenge them intellectually and say, well, I'm not, and I don't appreciate you lying about me like that or making stuff up or whatever. You got to challenge them on it. So anyway, so is that enough on immigration? Anchor babies, Karl Rove. We got a clip on him.
I've always had a thing for black people. I like black people.
That's not Karl Rove.
Absolutely. In fact, he's running against the grain of the Republicans. In July, Gallup did a poll. 50% of Republicans said that people who are here illegally could remain provided they met certain unspecified requirements. 18% said that they could remain and work. 31% said deport them all. Now, my suspicion is that 31% would be a smaller number if you attach to it what Mr. Trump also says, which is that you take children of illegal aliens who are born in the United States and you ship them out of the country as well with their families. They have constitutional right under the 14th Amendment to U.S. citizenship, having been born on U.S. soil.
Right.
And I think we would have a lot of stories of here in Texas there was a series of stories about valedictorians of our high schools who would be forced to leave under.
Yeah, well, the 14th Amendment doesn't seem to. I mean, I've read some articles by some high-level constitutionalists. Read them yourself. Go Google this 14th Amendment issue, and you'll find a lot of basically the argument for it being that you're born on U.S. soil, boom, automatic, end of story, you're automatically birthright citizen. There's nothing behind it. They just say it. Whereas the ones that argue for it not saying that and not meaning that, they have some very compelling evidence to prove that it is not the case, that you're not automatically citizen, birthright citizen, just because you were born here. As a matter of fact, if you're not subject to the jurisdiction of the rules and laws of this country, you're not. And in particular, if you want to go further with it, the argument was made that if your allegiance isn't with America because it's with another country, then you would not apply to the 14th Amendment. And that would be, okay, so somebody leaves their country, they don't want to be there anymore, they want to be in America, so they sneak over, and now they're happy to be here, and their allegiance is with America. If you want to make that argument, fine, go to court, make the argument. It doesn't change the fact that you're still here illegally. But we don't know. Why couldn't somebody just come over here illegally through the border, the southern border, because nobody's watching it, They're deliberately not watching it because you want to wage war here. And maybe, this is very conspiratorial, and nobody's made this conspiracy theory yet, and there's no evidence of it happening. But I'll throw this one out there. If you really wanted to get America and get them good, you could get a whole big group of people, adults, couples, if you will, from your country that wants to wage war on America, and sneak over and remain in contact, have them have a bunch of babies in America, and they'll all be birthright citizens because the dumb liberals that are pretty much advocating for that falsehood, and then raise them to be soldiers against America, and with their birthright citizenship, they could get into places where foreigners could never get into. The intelligence community, military, all kinds of you could probably get a security clearance maybe. I don't know about top secret, but definitely some lower level security clearances. If you look at what the hijackers did on 9/11, come here and stay here for 12 years and not change their mind about their mission, 19 hijackers. And none of them said, you know what, when I first was sent here, I was like totally for it. But now that I've been living here for 12 years, I think I want to stay. I want to be, maybe eventually become American, and to hell with that jihadist movement. I'm not going to kill myself for that cause. No, they all came over here and stayed here for 12 years training to do it, and none of them changed their mind. And why couldn't they have? Couldn't they have just said, you know what, y'all have fun. I'm staying here, and you're not going to do anything about it. You're not going to get me. Hell, they could have went to the FBI or whatever and said, hey, these guys, you might want to lock them up. We were all sent over here. I'm defecting. They didn't do that. None of them did that. So the conspiracy is you send over a whole group of adults. They come over here, and their only mission, well, two missions, have as many babies as possible, but then number two, raise them to wage war on the U.S. They'll be American citizens.
That's what Muslims do.
Yeah, and that's the whole argument. There was an article I read which was very well done, advocating against not only Obama being legally allowed to be a president because of the definition, her definition of natural-born citizen, but also saying no to Ted Cruz because his parents, and I guess Rubio too probably, but Cruz and Rubio, she was saying, listen, we can't say, well, he's okay because we know him and we gotta stick with it, because if we don't, we're going to end up with another Obama, which is basically an enemy. But the problem is if you have a parent that's not a citizen and never becomes a U.S. citizen, and you're born on American soil, you're an American citizen, maybe not properly, but whatever, 14th Amendment, misunderstood, misinterpreted, misapplied, causes you to become a birthright citizen, and you're raised by people who've never become U.S. citizens. Maybe whose allegiance are they with, right? What about the conspiracy theory? Couldn't we have those couples raise a son to be president one day? And the whole time they're saying, listen, you can't ever say this, but you are going to destroy America, and we're going to do it by trying to get you elected president. I mean, that's like, you could make an argument that maybe that's what happened with Obama because his mother was a communist, a card-carrying communist. Her dad, which would be Obama's white grandfather, was also a card-carrying communist. And wasn't he part of the intelligence community?
He was.
I mean, blows my mind.
He's clean and articulate.
Oh, yeah. As Joe Biden says, he's clean and articulate, which means that would make him a good candidate for president. So it's okay for Biden to use it. It's okay what anybody on the left says, because they're got to look big picture. The ends justifies the means. They're on our side, so we're going to give them a pass no matter what. But anyway, so
I got a sound clip of the media battling each other about how Trump.
So more sound clips regarding Trump. Let's hear this. Some news stuff.
And Amber, let's turn to the Republican race. Last night, Donald Trump defended taking away citizenship from kids of illegals born in the United States. Let's take a listen.
If you're born here, you're an American. Period. period.
I don't think they have American citizenship, and if you speak to some very, very good lawyers, and I know some would disagree, but many of them agree with me, you're going to find they do not have American citizenship. We have to start a process where we take back our country. Our country is going to hell.
This is one of his most controversial comments policy-wise. What do you think the strategy is here?
Well, the strategy for Donald Trump right now is to play into a lot of Americans' fears that the economy, that Washington is not working for them. And it seems to be working, as you mentioned. You know, he's doing well in the polls. He's solidifying his place right now as a leader. So he's tapping into this anti-Washington, anti-establishment fervor really, really well. We've seen a lot of other candidates like Carly Fiorina, Ben Carson, neither have held office like Donald Trump, drawing similar crowds and support. And I think Donald Trump is doing it best by sort of playing to the fears of one wing of the Republican Party.
But Amber, by the same token, does it expose his weaknesses vis-a-vis his policies? Because he says he thinks they are not American citizens. Well, that right of citizenship is guaranteed by the 14th Amendment of the United States. So is that sort of like what we're going to see going forward? Donald Trump sort of spouting off on what he thinks versus what the reality is?
Hey, Donald Trump and reality have not mixed this entire campaign, and it seems to be working for him.
Okay, what channel is
Amber
this?
Phillips from the Washington Post. Amber, thanks so much.
What channel is this? Is it MSNBC? That was so biased. Oh, well, Trump's opinions and reality don't mix. What is that? That is so biased. All right, so obviously they don't know. It's a shame. They're saying what I falsely believed, which was that what they said, which was the 14th Amendment guarantees that they're. And I did a little research, just a little bit, and come to find out I was wrong. Why don't journalists do this? What channel did you say it was on? CBS. That was CBS?
CBS News.
Oh, CBS News. You got to be kidding me. I cannot believe the bias. I mean, I do, but it's a shame. It's a shame that low information voters have to hear that. So
Rewriting the 14th Amendment on the news.
Rewriting it on the news. Well, I mean, and okay, I heard part of that news article when it came out. It's not those sound bites, or the first sound bite isn't that new. They were referring back to it to comment on it. When I first heard it, I thought, oh, Trump, you're going down this road. Because like I said, I thought that the 14th Amendment guarantees birthright citizenship. And then I thought, how is he going to defend this? And then he said, if you get some high-power lawyers and look at it, you'll see. And I thought, oh, we're going down this road? Because it kind of reminded me of him, the birther thing. The birther thing, last election cycle, he brought up the birther thing. Now, I don't know what Brian's opinion is on this, but my opinion is that I think that it can be shown if you dig into the old historical writings of our founders. You know, dig up what they wrote, what the founders wrote. What is the definition of natural-born citizen? The argument has been made based on the writings of the founders that natural-born means that you were born of two American citizen parents. They both have to be citizens. Now, they didn't have to be born here. They could have been born in, let's say, Germany, and then immigrated to America, then became citizens and gave birth to you. You would be a natural-born citizen. And if you really stop and think about the logistics, I guess you would call it, of that versus what they say natural-born means, which is 14th Amendment, you're born on U.S. soil, boom, you're a citizen. You could see why it was so important to the founders that it was so important to the founders that natural born is applied properly, which is that both parents have to be citizen. I mean, think about it. Again, like I said before, you got two parents that come over here illegally. We don't know what their motives are and where their allegiance is. If you've ever raised kids before, Brian and I are raising kids, so we're starting to really see this now, and we understand it from firsthand, is that your kids learn what you teach them, and that's what their worldview is not it. It comes from what they're learning, and a lot of kids out there are learning everything about the world through Nickelodeon or Disney, and some of them are being parented a little bit closer and are learning a lot from their parents. Of course, almost all kids look up to their parents as practical gods in their mind, and then of course the celebrities that they watch on TV and all that kind of stuff. So that's where their worldview comes from. If you have parents that A, are not citizens, B, have questionable motives and attitudes about America, that's a problem. Whereas U.S. citizens who have children are probably going to have a little bit different attitude towards their country, and as such, when they raise their children, they're going to have maybe a better attitude towards the country. And I think that is what the founders were thinking when they decided to make that make natural born. The problem they made, and if I could go back in time, number one, I would ask them, what's your definition of natural born? And then once they told me, if they said what I just said, which is born of two U.S. citizen parents, I would say you need to define that in the Constitution, because 230 years later they are really blowing that because people don't know. And part of it is the 14th Amendment. And I'll tell you what, I think that should have been worded a little bit more clearly, even though when I read the context of the author of the 14th Amendment and what his attitude was towards it, it makes sense. But if you don't read that like these idiots on CBS didn't, then you wouldn't know. And if you don't know, which they don't know, then you get it all screwed up and you have a bunch of foreign invaders coming over, giving birth to U.S. citizens who grow up to have a Mexican flag on the front of their house and not an American flag at all. And then they go to school and they demand that a kid wearing an American flag shirt turn it inside out, and then get offended when they celebrate the 4th of July.
When those kids get back to Mexico, the Mexicans don't respect them as being Mexican.
Well, they shouldn't. No, Brian was just telling me that if they do get deported, that if they go back and visit Mexico, the Mexicans there, family members or just wherever, are like, oh, you're not, we don't respect you. You're not real Mexican. Probably not, because if they were born in the U.S., most people, probably Mexicans included, they all believe, well, you're not a Mexican citizen, and you don't have your allegiance here. But it's funny because when they're up in America, they absolutely have their allegiance to Mexico, and they show it. I mean, I see all the time the Mexican flag tattooed across their entire chest, or maybe just a little one on their back on their shoulder. I understand the Mexican heritage and proud to be there. I mean, whatever. I mean, I have German and Irish heritage. Neither flag is either tattooed on me or hanging anywhere on my house. And even if I decided to do that, it would not be without an American flag. There would be an American flag, and then if I wanted to add the yellow Tea Party, don't tread on me, that's where my allegiance is. I know. But you know what? Every time I see one, I also see an American flag too. So that's a good thing. It's not like their allegiance is with some other cause that's not American. As far as we're concerned, the "Don't Tread on Me" thing is what original Americans were thinking. So, all right. So we beat up this topic for an hour. I'm ready to move on to the next topic. What did I have? I had several topics here.
Blood coming out of her, wherever.
Deez. We definitely had lots of topics. Here we go. Subject. I don't know how I lost this. But
do you think that a man's body is meant for penetration by another man?
Speaking of which, Jared from Subway is in. That was a nice little segue there, Mr. Producer. Wow, we need to get it permanently in there. So, Jared from Subway. Oh. So here's how it went down chronologically. The first report I heard, well, yeah, okay, that was a bad choice of words. All right, so here's how it went in the news. The first report I heard was some employee of Subway in the back offices or whatever, where Jared works or whatever, some employee had some issue with child porn, whether it was on their computer or whatever. That was the first report I heard, was that it was an employee of Subway. And then they for some reason, they brought up Jared's name. I think it might have been because it was where he worked. And so that was the first report I heard. And I thought, somebody will get arrested, and this has nothing to do with Jared. Then they started focusing on him more, and I thought, he might have a fight on his hands.
It's the director of his nonprofit for children getting skinny.
Oh, the director of his nonprofit for children getting skinny? That's the name of obese children.
He was making it.
So it turns out that it was possibly on the next reports come out, possibly on Jared's computer, the Subway Jared. And I thought, that doesn't sound good. And I thought, this is going to be a fight. This is going to be long, drawn out. How do you get child porn on? What's his excuse going to be? Then he just decided, let's just cut out the middleman here. He confessed to attempting to, or actually either molesting or whatever, 14 different children.
I was in prison, like, I got your foot long.
Oh, yeah, that was a little meme going on there. So the producer's trying to get me to say bad things. So let's just say that prison, somebody put up a, oh no, this is so bad. Somebody put up a picture on the internet. Somebody put a picture on the internet that said, prison does have footlongs. Oh, no, they didn't. Or it said something like, don't worry, Jared. Prison has footlongs. Oh, yeah. But, when you want to, lose weight, it's 6 inches. You got to get 6 inches.
Right.
Yeah. If you get the foot long, you're just biting off more than you can chew. So the story on him, look, Jared goes to prison. Hillary probably never will, and it's just a shame because Hillary resulted in dead people all over the place. But anyway, yeah, and Jared, admitting to molesting or attempting to meet up with, we'll have to get the story on that one. Either he actually made contact with 14, or he attempted to meet with 14, or he did meet with 14. I don't know. But that was the number. And so he's probably going to be busted for 14 counts of whatever. I don't know if it would be child molestation or I don't know what's the... No, we're talking real people that he actually... Yeah. There's a difference between, we found child porn on your computer and actually meeting up with a child.
The director was filming. He was making films.
His
director was making child films.
With Jared in it?
Yeah, I don't know.
So his director? So this isn't just limited to Jared.
No, his director was making
there's more people involved, people. So it turns out that the nonprofit for obese children that Jared founded was making child porn, and I may or may not have included Jared in them. But it's interesting because Jared admit that they must have found film with him in it. I'm just speculating here, folks. I'm just speculating. But why would he be so quick to admit 14 instead of fighting in court? They must have found video of him in it.
The director was hitting on a woman.
The director was hitting on a woman.
I said, hey, you want to see some of this stuff?
No.
She called the cops.
Yeah. So it turns out he tried to get in with a woman by showing her. Like, check this out. See, here's the problem. So Jared became friends with this guy because of that. Because the guy sounds like a real work. What do they call it? A real piece of work. And obviously, if you're running a big foundation like that, you would not want somebody like that in the organization. you would learn that. I'm not saying, oh, hey, by the way, you got child porn? You do? Well, that's okay. You can be in there. It wasn't like that. You would know there was something wrong with this guy if he's capable of trying to date a woman and impress her by showing her child porn. Wow. So, needless to say, she called the cops on him, and that's what got the ball rolling on Jared getting busted. And so that's the end of Jared. I think we'll be hearing about him in prison for a long, long time.
Blood coming out of her, wherever.
Oh, so inappropriate. Mr. Producer. All right, so this is interesting. I spent some time when I was in the military, I think about a month, in Korea, South Korea. And this week, they were exchanging fire with each other. Oh, man, let me tell you something, and I've talked about this on the show a long time ago when we brought this up. Korea was probably in the news. The biggest thing that I noticed when I was in South Korea that was just a shock was that we look like we were still at war, because we are. We are still at war with North Korea. It never stopped. There was the Korean War that happened in the 50s, early 50s, and when it ended, it was kind of a ceasefire, and that's it. There was no truce. There was no, hey, we're ending this war. There was no any kind of surrender of anybody. And so what happened was we technically, legally remained at war. And it hasn't changed ever since. So when I get to Korea, there are bunkers on every other corner. And bunkers, I mean, you go, if you have a machine gun, you would run down into this bunker and you could set it up like a M6 or they got everything's different now. The M249 Golf and all that kind of stuff, M240s, and you go down there with a belt-fed machine gun, and you could pretty much defend an area in this bunker with your machine gun. They're everywhere. They have sandbags on them and in front of them, and in between them are these big, giant concertina wire things that look like they're kind of portable. They can move them around. They're just sitting on the ground. But have you ever seen concertina wire? If you go to like a prison or something like that, they'll have the big fence, and then on top of the fence is the big circular, giant circular, razor blade, razor wire. It's called concertina wire, and it's like a new modern version of barbed wire. Well, the concertina wire in the Korean bases, they are 3. There's 2 on the ground attached, and then 1 on top. So it's like this pyramid. Yeah, it's a triangle of concertina wire, and it runs everywhere. Oh, if you touched it, you would be stuck, because it's shaped in a way, it's designed to catch your clothes. And once it catches your clothes, you're done. And the more you fight, the more these little razor blades catch more and more of the fabric of your clothes, and you're just stuck. I mean, your only hope is that during the end of a battle, let's say, somebody could kind of get you out of there. You definitely need help to get out of there.
Well, North Korea, in their mind, they're still at war with us.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, South Korea, too. They know. Everybody knows that the war is they're still at war. That's why all this stuff is set up. And if you go to the demilitarized zone, which is the border between North and South Korea, as military personnel, we were required to be in full uniform. We couldn't go in civvies. It was not allowed. You get in big trouble. And I think the reason is that they wanted everybody on the North looking over to see that we were definitely military. And the reason they wanted to do that is because they wanted to make sure that they could see a military presence at all times, so that there was never any thought, hey, we could just storm the border right now. That's literally why they do it. They want military people to visit as often as possible, behave in an extremely professional manner, and be in uniform so that they can always keep the North in check, because at any time they could just storm the border, is what the idea was. Yeah. So now during this, at the demilitarized zone, DMZ is for short, a shot was fired into South Korea, and when they realized what had happened, they returned fire. So apparently nobody was killed, or I don't even know if it was even hurt. But yeah, they exchanged fire. Interesting. So that's that happened this week. The Iran deal. The big news in Iran this week is that the UN had to tell us this because apparently everybody in America is too stupid to figure this out, and our leaders who made this deal are too stupid to figure it out. The UN points out that the Iran deal allows for the inspectors that would inspect the Iranian sites that could be suspected of being, let's say, a nuclear weapons facility. Those inspectors are allowed to be, wait for it, Iranian. Can you believe that? So they're basically going to get their buddies to say, hey, come take a look at it. They don't even have to look at it. They could be like, hey, just sign this paper and say that you looked at it. It's ridiculous. Oh, we got a sound. Oh, okay. Well, let's hear the sound clip.
Top Republican lawmakers blasting a stunning new report that claims the U.S. signed off on a nuclear deal that allows Iran to basically protect and inspect its own sites and then get back to us on what they find. Speaker Boehner says the Obama administration has a lot of explaining to do on this front. Quote, why haven't these secret side agreements been provided to Congress and to the American people for review? Why should Iran be trusted to carry out their own nuclear inspections at a military site that it has tried to hide from the world? Good questions all. Let's bring in retired four-star General Jack Keane. He is the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War and a Fox News military analyst. General, good to have you here this morning.
Good to be here, Martha.
You know, in your mind, what do we know about this so far, and why would we allow this?
Well, we can't allow it. And if this story stands, this is beyond absurd. It's just downright reckless and irresponsible. We know for 35 years, based on evidence, we cannot trust Iran. Now we cannot trust the UN inspector group, the IAEA, to conduct valid verification. That is what makes this absurd. We are talking about the security of the American people and our vital interests in the region.
This is just unbelievable. I mean, to say that the inspections can be done at any time by Iranians is pretty much saying that not only is nothing going to be reported on that would constitute a violation, but guarantees that they are going to go full-blown sprint to get nuclear weapons, ICBMs, the whole package.
Didn't the Congress and the Senate sign off on Obama getting a fast track?
Oh, right. And isn't that is so ironic.
They're complaining now.
Who is?
Congress. Boehner. He's complaining now.
He gave him a fast track. So anyway, Boehner, the Boehner-led Congress approved Obama to get a fast track on the treaties. Any kind of treaty, it just fast track automatic. Well, right after that, Obama hands over all nukes in a treaty to Iran. It's almost like, guys, this is Obama talking to Iran. Guys, hold on, we're going to get this fast track done. Just hold on, wait for it to happen. Once we get this fast track, then we'll come to you with the treaty, and it will be on. The destruction of America is going to happen, and I'm going to help you make it happen. Well, maybe not America, because, the Russians, they eventually were able to build missiles that not only could reach America, but in the quantities that they could actually destroy all of America. I really don't think in my lifetime Iran will get to that point. However, they certainly can destroy Israel, and you can tell by Obama's nonstop and repeated attitude towards Israel that he's right on board with Iran destroying them. Right on board. And, I think it's weird because, you would think that Obama would be able to be more assertive in his own executive powers to just eliminate Israel, but he wants to have clean hands of the dirty work. So he's just going to leave it to Iran to do that, and he just allowed that. Why do we give him fast track? Why do we trust Obama to do anything in America's interest? He hates America. He is a traitor. He should be not only impeached for many things, one of which would be the IRS scandal, but many other things too. He always does things that are against the best interest of America. Yeah, and the IRS thing that is, well, it's a very powerful tool used by Obama to steal elections. The ultimate result of what he's doing with the IRS steals elections because it allows for the passage of 501c3 status to organizations that support him, and it also completely buries any 501c4s, I think. That's 501c3s, 501c4s that would support his opposition. Tea Party can't raise money the way they can. You can't, and Brian knows all about this, you can't get people to donate money to your organization until you get that status because of the tax write-off potential. So they know that they're not going to get any money until they get that status. The IRS has to grant them that status. So you can steal the election by making sure that these organizations that would get the word out about their candidates do or do not get that status. And Obama was, by the way, this whole thing that I just described is completely illegal. It's 100 times worse than what Nixon got impeached for. So anyway, so that's Iran. I mean, the incompetency, the anti-Americanism, the just everything about it is just mind-blowing. Do you have a soundbite? We're going to switch gears here. We're going to go on to the next topic. Do you have a soundbite of the Black Lives Matter guy that asked Hillary the question? That ridiculous question that you sent me? No! Mr. Producer, you are fired! You don't get that? You might be able to pull up the video, though. See, we have this new technology now. We don't actually have to make a soundbite. If we play it on the internet, we are good to go. And now long version or short version? Well, I want to hear the whole question because it will make blood come out of your whatever, your eyes and whatever when you hear this. Okay. We could stop it if I indicate to stop it to comment on the ridiculousness of what he's saying. We'll comment on it. I didn't know it was 27 minutes long. Oh no! I didn't watch 20 minutes. No way. Well, which one did we see? I just want the one question. So this Black Lives Matter guy was visited by Hillary Clinton during some sort of a campaign stop, and she fielded the question. She let him. The question was ridiculous to begin with, but also it was so long. It was like the longest question I think I've ever heard in my life. So
what's amazing is that everybody's got that video and they're commenting on it.
Oh, well, okay. So I need to hear just the question to Hillary.
As respectfully as I can.
Oh,
but if you don't tell black people what we need to do, then we won't tell you all what you need to do.
Well, I'm not telling you. I'm just telling you to tell me.
What I mean to say is that this is and has always been a wet problem of violence.
What?
It's not. There's not much that we can do to stop the violence against us.
Well, if that is
a conversation that pushed
okay,
back.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Also respectfully.
Yeah. Well, respectfully, if that is your position, then I will talk only to white people about how we are going to deal with the very real
problems. That's
not
what I mean.
No, you know what? I kind of agree with her response there. Well, because she's getting irritated with him, but I wanted to hear that long, ridiculous. I didn't hear that question. That's the first time I heard that question. You could tell she was getting irritated by the premise of his question, which she should. He just flat out accused all white people of being violent. I mean, what is he where is he getting this stuff from? What is he talking about? It's like he's watching Roots on repeat or something. And like, look at these white people being violent to slaves in this fictional movie that based on possible true stories. Fine. So there were some blacks that got whipped during times of slavery. Hello, it's 2015. Where is this happening? What is he talking about? Okay, so there's cops that can be pointed out. A handful of them. Of course, they would say, well, all across America, white cops are killing unarmed black men, whatever. So we in all of America, with 330 million people in America, we found a couple instances where a white cop kills an unarmed black man. You know, we had one in Ferguson last week. Guy kills an armed black man who was pointing the gun at Ferguson police. They're rioting over that. Hello, if you have a gun, fine, you have a right to the Second Amendment. You point it at the cops, you're really asking for it. Sure enough, he got killed. But Mr. Producer's still looking for the ridiculous question. I mean, this guy rambled and rambled. Oh, so basically, as the producer's looking for it turns out that a whole bunch of people have used the video to make their own video. And he calls it piggybacking, because you can, if it's a viral video, you can take that viral video, make your own video with it, and just because you put a viral video in it, could go viral. And that's kind of like that's the whole premise of those channels like Break. They take a funny fail and they make a compilation out of it, and boom, you got viral videos back to back to back. But anyway, did you find something yet or no?
The conversation that pushed back.
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Also respectfully.
Yeah. Well, respectfully, if that is your position, then I will talk only to white people about how we are going to deal with the very real problems.
That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. No. But like what I'm saying is, what you just said was a form of victim blaming, right? You were saying that what the Black Lives Matter movement needs to do to change white hearts is
no, I'm not talking about. Look, I don't believe you change hearts. I believe you change laws, you change allocation of resources, you change the way systems operate.
I don't agree with that at all. Do you have my audio on? Yeah. So are all these sound bites going to be really echoey?
No, because this is straight off the internet.
Oh, you mean that straight off the internet is not echoey? We should have all the sound bites loaded up that way, but you can't do it on a Microsoft system, because of Microsoft. If you open up 10 windows in Microsoft, forget about it. You might as well take that thing and yank the plug out of it. You can't even control delete it.
The piece that's most important, and I stand here in your space, and I say this as respectfully as I can, but if
hold on, you guys, hold on. He said, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. It's my hardest. I'm gonna have to dig down deep to ask this as respectfully as possible, because what I really want to do is disrespect the hell out of you. I want to disrespect you so bad. You know why? Because you don't have the right color skin, and I hate you for it. That's exactly what he was basically saying. I'm paraphrasing. But that's pretty much what he said. All right, keep going.
Then we won't tell you all what you need to do.
Well, I'm not telling you. I'm just telling you to tell me.
What I mean to say is that this is and has always been a white problem of violence. It's not. There's not much that we can do to stop the violence against us.
Well, if that is
a conversation that pushed back.
Okay, I understand. I understand what you're saying.
Also respectfully.
Yeah. Well, respectfully, if that is your position, then I will talk only to white people about how we are going to deal with the very real problems.
That's not what I mean. That's not what I mean.
No.
But like what I'm saying is, what you just said was a form of victim blaming, right? You were saying that what the Black Lives Matter movement needs to do to change white hearts is
no, I'm not talking about. Look, I don't believe you change hearts. I believe you change laws, you change allocation of resources, you change the way.
Change allocation of resources.
Allocation of resources. So what she was saying was, this is what a person who has no capacity to lead would say. Like, hey, look, I can't say anything to anybody to change their mind because I'm incapable of doing that because I have no leadership. However, I can get in a cubicle, bust out the spreadsheet or a word processor or even a legal pad and start jotting down ways to create a system that forces people to behave how I want them to behave. So forget about changing hearts. We're not changing hearts. What we're going to do is we're going to make them behave towards people a certain way. And the way if I'm hearing you correctly, I'm playing Hillary right now. If I'm hearing you correctly, we need to force white people to stop the violence against white people or against black people. Is basically, I guess, is that what he's asking? So Brian is unable to find that original.
I've got something here on the Breitbart.
Wait a minute. You sent me that video. Hold on a second. Hold on. Hold on. You messaged it to me.
I got part 1.
Why don't I just email it back to you?
Part 1.
What do you mean part 1? This is what you need to send to. Is this a YouTube? It is a YouTube video. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause it if I can. Okay. So I'm going to forward this to your email. And then you can play it. Because that's what you need. There, I sent it to you. How's that? That should be good enough to make this
to be in this dialogue with you. But I think that a huge part of what you haven't said is you've offered a recognition that mass incarceration has not worked. And that is an unfortunate consequence of government practices that just didn't work. But the truth is that there's an extremely long history of unfortunate government practices that don't work, that particularly affect black people and black families. And until we as a country and the person who's in the seat that you seek actually addresses the anti-blackness current that is America's first drug. We're in a meeting about drugs, right? America's first drug is free black labor and turning black bodies into profit. And the mass incarceration system mirrors an awful lot like the prison plantation system. It's a similar thread, right? And until someone takes that message and speaks that truth to white people in this country so that we can actually take on anti-blackness as a founding problem in this country, I don't believe that there's going to be a solution because what the conversations that are happening now and why there's so much cohesion across the divide, the red side and the blue side, is because of money. Right? We're spending a lot of money on prisons. We're spending more money on prisons than we are on schools. Right? But if we look at it from a lens of let's solve this financial problem, and we don't look at the greater bottom line that African Americans who are Americans are suffering at greater rates than most other people, every other people, for the length of this country, then it's not going to go away. It's just going to morph into something new and evolved. And I genuinely want to know, you and your family have been, in no uncertain way, partially responsible for it, more than most.
Is that a question? What happened? Why is it not playing? Oh, they're putting words out there?
Now, there may have been unintended consequences, but now that you understand the consequences, what in your heart has changed that's going to change the direction of this country? Like, what in you, like, not your platform, not what you're supposed to say. Like, how do you actually feel that's different than you did before? Like, what were the mistakes? And how can those mistakes that you made be lessons for all of America? For a moment of reflection on how we treat black people in this country.
I just want to, and I apologize. We have.
I would really love to allow her to answer this question.
I'm not stopping.
We've worked really hard. We've driven so many hours.
We're not stopping. I'm just letting you guys know before we've got a couple more minutes. We still have more people in the overflow that are waiting. So I'm not interrupting what you're about to say. I just wanted to sort of give you guys a heads up on timing. So we've got limited time.
Well, obviously, it's a very thoughtful question that deserves a thoughtful answer. And I can only tell you that I feel very committed to and responsible for doing whatever I can. I've spent most of my adult life focused on kids through the Children's Defense Fund and other efforts to try to give kids, particularly poor kids, particularly black kids and Hispanic kids, the same chance to live up to their own God-given potential as any other kid. That's where I've been focused. And I think that there has to be a reckoning. I agree with that. But I also think there has to be some positive vision and plan that you can move people toward. I mean, once you say, this country has still not recovered from its original sin, which is true. Once you say that, then the next question by people who are on the sidelines, which is the vast majority of Americans, the next question is, well, so what do you want me to do about it? What am I supposed to do about it? That's what I'm trying to put together in a way that I can explain it and I can sell it. Because in politics, if you can't explain it and you can't sell it, it stays on the shelf. And this is now a moment in time, just like the civil rights movement or the women's movement or the gay rights movement or a lot of other movements reached a point in time. The people behind that consciousness raising and advocacy, they had a plan ready to go. So that when you turn to, the women's movement, we want to pass this and we want to pass that and we want to do this. Problems are not all taken care of. We know that. Obviously, I know more about the civil rights movement in the old days because I had a lot of involvement in working with people. So they had a plan, this piece of legislation, this court case we're going to make, et cetera, et cetera. Same with the gay rights movement. We're sick of homophobia. We're sick of being discriminated against. We want marriage equality. We're starting in the States.
She equated his issue with the gay rights movement. She just called him gay. No, she didn't call him gay. She didn't call him gay, but it's interesting that she's revealing a lot here. She's pulling the curtain back a little bit. She's saying, look, it's all the same thing. We're just in this big struggle, and it's a struggle for this, struggle for workers unite. It's all about communism. But the premise of his question reveals a lot about the Black Lives Matter movement. It's the whole premise is really flawed because, first of all, America didn't cause slavery. America solved the slavery problem. We cured ourselves. We cured the disease that Great Britain started. We were the British colonies, and we attempted to abolish it right from the get-go. Thomas Jefferson, when he wrote the Declaration of Independence, which was the letter to King George to basically indict him for all kinds of crimes against the people of the colonies. All right, that was what the letter was. And if you read the whole thing, it's like a laundry list of all the things that justify our Declaration of Independence. One of the things that was in there originally, in the original draft, was an indictment against the king of attempting to further and expand and enslave people of a faraway land against their will and bring them thousands of miles here. It was all written by Thomas Jefferson, and it had to be taken out because, remember, in order for any success to be hoped for in the Declaration of Independence, everybody had to be united. All 13 colonies had to all say, we are all done with you. Because if one of them said, you know what, I'm not on board with this, then Great Britain could use that state as a launching pad for a big offensive against the other 12. And it was Georgia and South Carolina. Those were the two that were like, whoa, 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 Tommy boy, buddy, we're not gonna sign off on this if you have that statement in there. And of course, a big debate ensued and blah blah. And then they were finally, basically, what happened was the northern states were like, listen, I'm with you on this indictment on the slavery thing, but if we don't have Georgia and South Carolina, this ain't going to happen. And if we don't have them, you're not going to have us. And so they all reluctantly agreed to leave that fight for another day. Let's get rid of Great Britain first, and then we'll fight over the slavery thing later. And interestingly enough, very shortly after the Revolutionary War was won, right off, like one of the first things they did, a few years later, they abolished any transport of slaves into the new United States. Completely. No new slaves were shipped into the United States after that, or at least not legally. May have been done underground or something like that. Through Mexico. What? We didn't even share a border with Mexico in the beginning, by the way, if you didn't know that. So anyway, so Mr. Producer is trying to throw some monkey wrenches into the program. So that was what the truth was. Now, some of you Black Lives Matter people and listening to the show, because I know y'all are. Hey, we have Black Lives Matter friends on Twitter. Yikes! Yes. Well, you gotta keep your enemies close. So anyway, so if you're listening, or if you're a liberal who is all for that cause, which here's the thing, it's not. If you say Black Lives Matter, there may be an implication that other lives that are not black might not matter. And I don't like that. We don't like that here in Smith Radio. We believe in all lives matter, and we laugh at Bernie Sanders, who got chastised and all of that. But anyway, so for those of you who are on that side, who say, well, Tommy Boy Jefferson owned slaves. And I had one yell at me this week in the comment section that he raped his slaves. Look, just because you have sex with somebody, sex does not equal rape all the time. And their argument was a servant or a slave of the master cannot, by definition, must be rape, because you can't say that there could be consent there, because how do you not consent? If you don't consent, then it would be rape. But because it's a slave, you can't consent, or you can't not consent. Because if you don't, you could get whipped, or you could get murdered, or whatever. But hey,
so there's duress, under duress.
He had children. He had children with slaves. I think that was proven. There was a show I saw. I don't know if it was on the History Channel or whatever. But NPR. Is that what it was on? Oh, he's Mr. Producer. Man, we are getting just blown up here by bad producer. So anyway, no, it's been proven that Thomas Jefferson fathered slaves. Fathered children to slaves. He fathered children to slaves. And that does not mean it. I mean, as far as I knew, they could have been in love.
Very well good.
They could have very well been in love.
Did you see that one movie that was all about the slave fight?
No.
And that one senator was fighting for slaves to be free.
Okay.
Come to find out, he was actually had a black woman at home.
Okay, so I guess there's senators from way back when that had children of slaves. It may have been. It may have been a lot more common than we think. I think it's interesting that here in the southern states where it's really sunny, really hot, and the argument of biologists for how there's people with black skin and people with white skin is the black skin in Africa helps protect them from the sun, right? And then as humanity moves north, they don't need that pigment. So then people become white, I guess, living in the northern areas of Europe and stuff like that. So over tens of thousands of years, maybe hundreds of thousands of years, you have people living way up north that have the white skin, and then people in Africa that have the black skin. Well, if you look at the Africans that live and whose ancestry comes from Africa and live in Africa, their skin is very black, like very, 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 very dark brown. But then you look at the descendants of slaves in America who lived their entire, not only their life, but I'm talking generations and generations and generations in the South in America, which is very hot, very sunny. Most of them have a little bit lighter skin. So there definitely could very well be mixed races from slavery back in the day.
He played a Republican called Thaddeus Stevens.
Thaddeus Stevens?
Was a Republican.
He was a Republican.
Pushing for abolish slavery.
Okay, pushing for abolishment. He was an abolitionist.
And he was in love with a black woman who lived in his house.
Okay, so he's in love with one of his slaves, or okay, and of course, a relationship like that, an interracial relationship back in the early 1800s, would have had to have been kept secret. Somebody pointed out, and tell me if you've ever known this, Mr. Producer. Somebody pointed out to me that Thomas Jefferson, living in Virginia at the time, it was illegal for him to just free slaves. He couldn't just let them go.
It's probably true.
It would have been illegal for a slave master to say, hey, all y'all, you're now free.
It's probably true.
When I heard that, it would make so much sense. Why? Because the whole thing about him, the fact that he was an abolitionist, I don't think anybody disputes that he was an abolitionist is an idiot or uneducated or went through the public school system of communist propaganda to not know that he was an abolitionist. I mean, he tried to use anti-slavery and his opposition to slavery as an indictment against King George III in the Declaration of Independence. So clearly he was an abolitionist. He also fathered children to a black woman, which would have been his slave. Some say that would be rape. I don't think so. It's not in his nature. I mean, he's not allowed to free her. And he wouldn't be allowed, right. There you go. So producers talking about it may just be semantics that he's unable to free her. So even though technically she is still his slave, but legally she's his slave, he wouldn't be legally allowed to free her.
Thaddeus Stevens would go home. That black woman was his maid.
So Thaddeus went home with the maid, which was a slave. He wasn't married. Okay. That makes sense.
It's in the movie Lincoln.
The movie Lincoln?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look. You mean the one, the Steven Spielberg one?
2012.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a Steven Spielberg one.
He climbed into bed with her at the end of the movie and talked to her about the freedom.
Oh, okay. Okay. And so it was portrayed in the movie Lincoln. Thaddeus Stevens was in love with, I guess, one of his slaves. So the whole thing is that they're saying, well, it's hypocrisy to oppose slavery and then own slaves. But if you're not legally allowed to free them, here was my argument. I assume that I did not know that it was illegal to free them. I still, to this day, am not 100% sure. Could be that it was illegal. I don't know. But if it was, that would make a lot of sense. But let's say that it was legal to free your slaves if you want to. If that would be the case, then obviously there's some hypocrisy here. But here would be my Mr. Producer's got a big look on his face. He's excited.
Virginia state law makes it illegal to free your slave.
Okay, so the producer just found an article on a Google search saying that Virginia did have a law making it illegal to free your slaves. So that makes perfect sense then.
And that law came from the English colonies.
Well, then I'm going down a rabbit hole that's completely moot at this point, which is that what if it was legal? Would it be hypocrisy to still own slaves? Well, here's my argument. Thomas Jefferson didn't grow up a poor boy and then earn a bunch of money and then go out and start buying slaves. He would have inherited a lot of slaves, right? And then those slaves would have procreated and had even more slaves, right? In general. So I'm making a point here. So they lived in a world, their little world that they lived in was a capitalist society that had slavery. And as such, as a person who would have inherited slaves and lived in a society where you're competing against other capitalists who also had slaves. And by the way, at this point in time, slaves were considered property. So just having them at all is worth something, even if they're not doing anything. But if you have them and they're working, there's a big value here that has that would be a part of your net worth in a capitalist society where you're just trying to compete to survive. It would be unfair to say, well, if you were so against slavery, why didn't you just free all your slaves? Your money is power. We've had this argument on Smith Radio before. And as a person of power, you could have influence, which at this point in history, Thomas Jefferson did amass a lot of power and influence. You know, he ended up being a founding father of a new country that went on to become a world power, the most powerful nation on earth. He was one of the founders of that. So for him to just free all of his slaves at any point in his lifetime would have been giving it all away, giving everything away, all of his wealth, all of his power. It would be like it would be as unfair as saying, well, if you don't agree with land ownership and you own a house that's on land, why don't you give that away? Give it away. I'm not talking sell it, because if you sell a slave, you're not freeing the slave, right? So telling somebody that doesn't agree with, or here's a good one, if you're an advocate for the hunter-gatherer society of the Native Americans, if you are for that society, then why don't you give everything away, because there wasn't much for property with the Native Americans. No ownership. Definitely no land ownership. But why don't you give everything away, go find a big giant forest, woods, millions of acres of woods, and go and hunt for food? Why don't you do that? If you don't do that, you're a hypocrite. It's equivalent, because you got to look at the world they were living in a world where you're born into a family that owned slaves because they were probably inherited by their parents and their parents and their parents, where the only way to make the kind of wealth, to gain the kind of power, to have any influence, you need to own slaves.
What do you think they think about us and abortion today?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we're in a comparison.
I'm trying to put the listener in that time.
Your mic's off, by the way. So yeah. So abortion, you could kind of segue into the abortion by saying that it would be similar to the way we look at slave owners back then as just so terrible. How are people 100 or 200 or 300 years from now going to look back at us with the slavery or with the abortion issue? So the point you're making is, we look back at them in disgust forever owning slaves, but you got to put yourself in that world. And
imagine them looking forward to us. What would they think?
Interesting. So let's put ourselves in their world. Or first of all, what would they think of us if they knew about our world today? First of all, I think Thomas Jefferson would be like, "Thank God they finally abolished all that."
Okay, but yet we're aborting.
Well, right. Okay. So, and by the way, Thomas, yes, we freed the slaves, but all those slaves that we freed, their children are now just being mass murdered. It's an apocalyptic Holocaust. It is, and it's all behind closed doors, behind a couple of inches of flesh, and behind the closed door of an abortion clinic where nobody could see it. And it took for somebody to go in there with a hidden camera, which still doesn't get all the horrors of it, but to see the body parts in a petri dish, you finally get a glimpse. It's still just a slight sliver of vision behind the curtain. The curtain was just drawn back a little bit for the world to see, and everybody's like, oh, like shocked. Oh, the 8th video. Yeah, I did see that they were...
they talked about removing a baby with a beating heart.
Oh, no, and a brain. They removed a brain of a still alive fetus. But it's okay because it was aborted. Quote. Yeah, beating heart. It was beating heart. No, the one I heard, so you heard one, the beating heart. Yeah. The other one I heard was that they removed the brain of a fetus that was still alive.
Fetus or a baby?
Well, it would be a baby, I guess.
Oh, okay.
It would be a baby, yeah. Yeah, this is not just semantics. These words do mean. I'm glad the producer corrected me on that, because
that's what they call it.
They call them fetuses, whatever. Because a fetus, by definition, would be an unborn child, not born yet. But if it's aborted, here's where the semantics get a little hairy. If it's a fetus when it was aborted and it's dead, would it still be, even though it's out of the body, it never was born.
It was a dead baby.
So now it's a dead baby.
Well, then what about C-section? Was that born?
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, that'd be born. So what's the definition of born now?
That's what I'm talking about.
So if born means that it came out the mother's womb through the vagina, whatever.
You can say that.
I'm allowed to say that? Okay, producers let me know that the FCC will not fine us for using the vagina word. Is that the definition of born? Or if it's a C-section, is that not considered born? So, and fetus is very, it can be confusing, which is, the left loves confusing people because then they could just make up whatever they want. But if you can't say, oh, well, it was a fetus because it was at this many weeks. Well, I have a niece that was born so prematurely that,
she was supposed to be born the same time as my son in May.
Okay. So, yeah, she would have been the same age as your son.
Now, technically,
wow.
is 3 to 4 months older than my son.
So with the producer having a conversation with me and you can only hear my side of it, I hope this is not a devastatingly terrible show. But, okay. Okay. But it's not long conversation. So hopefully. So anyway, we have a niece that was born so premature that I really didn't think she was going to make it. I really did. As soon as I heard the date, the age of the amount of weeks, I was like, oh, wow, this is not good. It was really, really premature. In fact, when she got out of the hospital, I still think she wasn't supposed to be born yet. She was so tiny, she just fit right in the palm of your hand.
She went back, came back and forth.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, that being said, that's not a fetus because she's now born. Even though she's much less developed than many of the fetuses that are older, that are aborted. They're older. They're viable, obviously. My niece was viable, even though barely viable, but she survived, and now she's alive and healthy and all that. So that's good. So interesting segue. But are we on to the next topic? Bernie Sanders. Let's go back to the abortion thing. Did you see Dennis Prager's video? Dennis Prager came out with a video and he said, look, it's a very controversial topic, so let's just take the emotion out of it. And for those of you that don't know Dennis Prager, I used to listen to him. He had a 3-hour show on 55 KRC.
He's out there on the West Coast.
Okay. Well, he was nationwide for at least a year. Because he was on, he still has nationally syndicated radio, but there are a lot of cities, and Cincinnati is one of them, that don't carry him anymore. So if you want to hear him, you would have to either hear him on like iHeartRadio or the internet. But he was great. I loved listening to him. He's a conservative Jewish guy who he brings in his Jewish faith into the conservatism a lot. But it's all, hey, we're all conservatives, and it worked great. And the cool thing about Jewish conservatives is that they bring up the Israel thing a lot, which is great because, Israel, we don't talk about it enough. And the thing about Israel is I think Israelis share a lot of the ideology of your American conservative. And we support them for their causes and everything like that. And then they support. And Democrats hate Israel. Most of them do. And I don't understand all the Jewish Americans that are liberal, especially from New York. I guess there's a large population of Jewish Americans in New York who, a good percentage of them are Democrat. And I just don't get it. I just do not get it. They're a big part of why New York is so blue, because of so many Jewish people in New York that vote Democrat. Meanwhile, your average non-Jewish Democrat hates Jews. They hate them, and they hate Israel. And it's just like, how are you aligned with this party? It's like the black vote. They vote 95% or 90%
every time.
Yeah, for Democrats. It was the Democrat Party that was in the South that enslaved you, and then after the Emancipation Proclamation, founded the KKK to kill you, to murder you and your ancestors.
Minimum wage to keep you poor.
Minimum wage, every Democrat policy is to keep African Americans enslaved. And this is a great segue. Let's get back to the video that we just played for you. The answer to his question is, if you want to end all this stuff, what he was trying to say, which I've never heard before, and I'm glad I heard it.
Black Lives Matter with Hillary.
Yeah, so this Black Lives Matter question that he asked of Hillary was, before he asked the question, he wanted to give Hillary a lesson on where he's coming from, and it was a long background statement. He wanted to show that there's a common thread that you can weave through time that is a war against black people that starts with slavery, the original sin of slavery, which I don't agree with, which we just said. Thomas Jefferson, whatever. It's all about British slavery, and we ended that. But his thing was, there's a war against blacks starting with slavery, and then after slavery ended, he just went right to the prisons, which there's a lot of other destinations or stops along the way on this thread, but all the way to today is that if you look at the prison population, it's mostly black. A ridiculous percentage of black people are in prison. I'm talking the whole black population of America. A very ridiculous percentage of them are in prison compared to their white counterparts. Right. Then if you take a prison, any prison, and you look at the demographics of that prison anywhere in America, and a shocking high percentage of blacks versus whites are in that prison. So his point is that if you draw that thread, it leads to the prison population, and what can you do about that? My answer to him is, well, not just prisons. Let's keep that thread going. Let's weave it everywhere. Why is it 150 years after slavery was abolished that the vast majority of the black population is so poor, and really, I can even make the argument, so oppressed and so held down? Sure, you could make the argument, hey, you got to take responsibility for your own life. That's true. But where's this oppression coming from? You're oppressed as a black man in America if you're supporting Democrat ideological causes.
Absolutely.
And if you are going to keep pulling the lever for the party that comes out with all these programs and policies that fit the Democrat Party, which is progressivism, utopianism, communism, whatever you want to call it, you'll see. I'll give you a perfect example. Please, if you are a black man, black woman, black anything listening right now, you are poor and oppressed. But if you look at your situation and compare it to what the Soviet citizens were going through the 60s, 70s, and 80s in soup lines and bread lines and waiting for hours and hours just to get their little piece of bread for their family. Is there any difference there? The poverty that the black community goes through in America today and for the past 50 years or whatever, say 30 years at least, and then you look at Soviet Union citizens who are not black, but they went through the same thing. Why? Where's the common thread? The commonality between the two is socialist, communist, utopianism, Marxism, all supported by progressive Democrats. So, if you really want to end this, if you really want to say, you know, it's all about slavery. No, it's not about slavery. It's about Democrat Party socialism. Move over to the conservative side, and all of that will come to an end. So that Dennis Prager, you got to watch that video on. Basically, go to it's Prager University YouTube channel, and his latest one was an explosive anti-abortion video. It's awesome. You could actually play it, and it's. Do we have time to play it, Mr. Producer? Okay, he's going to bring it up. Meanwhile, Bernie Sanders, he is on fire. What is it? We got a 73-year-old white male fuddy-duddy who's got a thick Brooklyn accent.
Oh, you mean like Joe Biden? But no,
Joe Biden. Yeah, well, Joe Biden. Here's the thing. Joe Biden he's actually aged well. He looks like a healthy, strapping old man. For his age, he looks great. Bernie Sanders looks his age.
It's a 5-minute video.
Oh, is it? Whew, that's a long 5-minute video on Dennis Prager. It's good, though. It's good. But anyway, the thing I like about it is he did it like all the Democrats. They come out with the videos that are pro the global warming, and they're pro. So they come out with the cartoon graphics and stuff like that. But it's an anti-abortion video, which I thought was great. Mr. Producer sounds like he's a little reluctant to play any part of it, but it's good.
Of the most emotionally charged subjects there is, abortion, but in an unemotional way. Also, let's not touch on the question that most preoccupies discussion of the subject, whether abortion should be legal or illegal. The only question here is the moral one. Is ending the life of a human fetus moral? Let's begin with this question. Does the human fetus have any value and any rights? Now, it's a scientific fact that a human fetus is human life. Those who argue that the human fetus has no rights say that a fetus is not a person. But even if you believe that, it doesn't mean the fetus has no intrinsic value or no rights. There are many living beings that are not persons that have both value and rights.
Pictures of animals.
Dogs and other animals, for example. And that's moral argument number one.
So Brian's... Oh, yeah. So people who are mad about Cecil the lion and just about any other animal rights activists, they're called animal rights activists. Now, I think what Dennis Prager, he glosses over, he doesn't distinguish between animal rights and human rights. He just says rights, which is fine if he wants to make that argument. But I think that even animal rights activists will admit, well, they don't have the same rights as humans, but they do have rights. And that's what Dennis Prager is pointing out.
If I remove puppies from a mother and throw them in a garbage can when I go to jail.
Oh, my gosh. Wow. That's a great question. So the producer asks, if you took a pregnant dog and removed the puppies, killed them, and threw them in the garbage can because you didn't want the puppies, but you had to make sure you did it before they were born because somebody might not like you killing the puppies after they're born. Would it be okay to remove the puppies and kill them and throw them in the garbage can? Very interesting question. So that's the rights argument that Dennis Prager was bringing up. So let's see what his second thing is.
A living being doesn't have to be a person in order to have intrinsic moral value and rights.
Okay, that was his first
When
one.
challenged with this argument, people usually change the subject to the rights of the mother, meaning the right of a mother to end her fetus's life under any circumstance, for any reason, and at any time in her pregnancy. Is that moral? It is only if we believe that the human fetus has no intrinsic worth. But in most cases, nearly everyone believes that the human fetus has essentially infinite worth.
If he's going to see, this is a big if question. If.
And an almost absolute right to live. When? When a pregnant woman wants to give birth. Then society and its laws regard the fetus as so valuable that if someone were to kill that fetus, that person could be prosecuted for homicide.
Planned Parenthood thinks the fetus has value because they're selling it.
Oh, good point. So Brian brings up that it has monetary value through Planned Parenthood because they can sell the body parts.
They've proven it.
Well, yeah. So it has monetary value. I would say that some people who are pro-life might argue that there's a difference between life, value of a life, like Dennis Prager said, infinite value, enough that you would be prosecuted for homicide, compared to monetary value. Like, for instance, if I said, look, you're going to die tonight unless you pay me to not kill you or something like that. There's no ceiling to that value, right? Like you could, I mean, at what point are you like, well, I won't give up that much money. Go ahead and kill me. I mean, you know, there's no real set ceiling on the value of a life.
Will you take a check?
He said, will you take a check? Well, no, I'm saying that it wouldn't be debt. It would be like, you know, all of your worldly possessions, or else you die. I think that probably most people would go for that. But
I got a check.
Brian said, we take a check.
Only if a pregnant woman doesn't want to give birth do many people regard the fetus as worthless. Now, does that make sense? It doesn't seem to. Either a human fetus has worth, or it doesn't. And this is moral argument number 2. On what moral grounds does the mother alone decide a fetus's worth? We certainly don't do that with regard to a newborn child. It is society, not the mother or the father, that determines whether a newborn child has worth and a right to live. So the question is, why should that be different before the human being is born? Why does one person, a mother, get to determine whether that being has any right to live? People respond by saying that a woman has the right to control her body. Now, that is entirely correct. The problem here, however, is that the fetus is not her body. It is in her body. It is a separate body. And that's moral argument number 3. No one ever asks a pregnant woman, how's your body? When asking about the fetus.
That's right.
People ask, how's the baby? Moral argument number 4.
Very good point.
Virtually everyone agrees that the moment the baby comes out of the womb, killing the baby is murder.
True.
But deliberately killing it a few months before birth is considered no more morally problematic than extracting a tooth. How does that make sense? And finally, moral argument number 5. Aren't there instances in which just about everyone, even among those who are pro-choice, would acknowledge that an abortion might not be moral? For example, would it be moral to abort a female fetus solely because the mother prefers boys to girls, as has happened millions of times in China and elsewhere?
Everybody knows that's moral.
And one more example. Let's say science develops a method of determining whether a child in the womb is gay or straight. Would it be moral to kill a gay fetus because the mother didn't want a gay child? People may offer practical reasons not to criminalize all abortions. People may differ about when personhood begins and about the morality of abortion after rape or incest. But with regard to the vast majority of abortions, those of healthy women aborting a healthy fetus, let's be clear. Most of these abortions just aren't moral. Good societies can survive people doing immoral things. But a good society cannot survive if it calls immoral things moral. I'm Dennis Prager.
Good video. I like it. Yeah. The moral argument one was a little bit questionable, but after that, I mean, he was spot on with all the rest of his points, and he tried his hardest to make it palatable for both sides by, saying whether or not it should be legal is not going to be part of it. Let's just talk about whether it's moral. And then there were the comment sections blowing up with a lot of. It's the thing about abortion. You bring it up, and it's just going to cause blood to come out of your eyes and wherever, and so literally sometimes, but
y'all,
and that's what happens when you get into the abortion argument. So Jimmy Carter died. No, Jimmy Carter is still alive and well, but we're all praying for him. But I've had first of all, he's 90, and there's people on there like, oh, start chemotherapy. He's even going to start chemotherapy. 90. Look, guys. It's okay. Very, very healthy young people are practically destroyed by chemo. 90 ain't gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. And I'm sorry for all you people that are pulling for him. I mean, I'm just for humanity's sake, I'm pulling for him. But how many people do you know in your life, family members or just people you may or may not know, that have lived beyond 90? I mean, it's kind of, that's a big milestone to hit 90. I mean, my grandmother just kind of limped into 86 before she died. And 86 is a full life. Our grandfather was 92 or 3, but good Lord. I mean, he was very healthy.
They could do to Carter what they did to Lenin.
Oh, right. So Lenin's still around. Vladimir Lenin. If you were to see him today, you would think he was just sleeping.
I didn't look a day over 60.
Look a day over 60. So, he doesn't even have wrinkles. No. So what they did with him was they did some crazy technique. It was a new technique where they would introduce some sort of this plasticky, waxy stuff into his body, and what would happen is his cells would absorb it and then become like a plastic. So his entire body is 100% preserved and will never deteriorate, probably ever. If they buried him in the ground today and just left him and then came back 100 years from now and dug him back up, probably look exactly the same. So I guess they could do that to Carter too, which I could totally see a movement going for that, because utopians need something to believe in, and so they believe in Vladimir Lenin, and that's why they embalmed him, and he's like the relic.
They say he still has a waxy look.
Of course. Yeah, Lenin has a waxy look to him because he's made out of wax. It's amazing. They created like wax artists that make wax figures. Have you ever seen those? If you go to a wax museum, they do it from scratch, and it's very, very well done and very realistic. Vladimir Lenin is not a wax statue. He's Vladimir Lenin. It's his actual body. And the way they did it was by introducing the chemicals into his body, with which his cells would then absorb the wax. The producers show me Kim Jong-il, the second, was ill. Did they do that to him?
Yeah.
What is it with communists? So basically, communists are atheists. They do not believe in God. They do not believe in a supernatural deity. So what they do is communists will worship their fallen deity. It's not a deity. It's not a supernatural. It's a natural person who, after death, they turn into wax, and then they can worship them from now on. So, interesting little point. Who's that?
Cesar Chavez.
They did that to him too? Cesar Chavez? No, they didn't make wax out of him, did they?
Yeah.
So pretty much, if you're a communist dictator, you're going to go on forever. Your body will. as a wax figure for the most part. Interesting. So there's that. So Jimmy Carter will probably be turned into wax.
What difference at this point does it make?
Did you hear about the Heidi Klum Trump debacle? Okay, so Heidi Klum criticized Trump, and then Trump comes back and says, well, she's not a 10. She's not a 10. She's not a 10 anymore. She used to be a 10. She's not a 10 anymore. So, of course, all the left were like, oh, because you can never, there are some things you can never do with a woman. You can never ask her age or comment on her age. And you cannot ever tell a woman that she's not anything other than a 10. Right? So she... Well, right, okay, so the producer's like, that's a 10. That's fine. You can say that she's a 10, but Trump said she's not a 10.
Fair enough. She might be a 9.
And she might be a 9. So Heidi Klum comes back, and I think this was a massive fail. But all the left are like, you go, girl, you get him. She comes out with a commercial where a guy she's doing a photo shoot. A guy comes up from behind her into the screen and rips a 10. 10 was on her shirt. And he comes into the screen, and the guy has a mask on that looks like Donald Trump.
This is creepy, dude.
Grabs the 10 label on her shirt, a.k.a. Justin Timberlake on kind of Janet Jackson. Remember the wardrobe malfunction? Grabs the 10, rips it off of her, and underneath the 10 is another paper that says 9.99. It's kind of a response to Donald Trump saying she's no longer 10, and that she said, well, I may be a 10. I'm not a 10. I'll be a 9.99. And all of a sudden, everybody rallies around Heidi Klum like, oh, boom! You go, girl. You got that. You got him. And I'm like, how is this? This is a fail.
That was awful.
This is a fail because you're not supposed to run around saying that you're a 10. If you say you're a 10 in my world, it's just asking to be like everybody coming out of the woodwork saying, well, you're not a 10. And for her to come out and say, well, okay, I'm not a 10, but okay, I'm a 9.9 or 9.99, just makes her look so vain.
Guy's wearing a Donald Trump mask.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah, he comes into the screen, he's wearing a Donald Trump mask.
But it's cut out of a piece of paper.
I know, it looks terrible. It's not even a mask, it's a piece of paper with his picture on it, and the guy straps it onto his face.
It pokes holes in the eye.
Yeah, there's holes in the eye so he could see. I don't know why he even needed to do that. He can't see where he's grabbing anyway. So her shirt says 9.99, and somehow that's supposed to be a, oh, gotcha, Trump. And there's even hashtags. There's like 6 different hashtags around this Heidi Klum thing. I think it's a massive fail. Heidi, yeah, you're hot. Okay, we don't need you to tell us that you're A, a 10, or B, a 9.99 to see that. If you're going to bash Trump, we're going to look down on you as a lesser person.
Hashtag Heidi Trumps Trump.
Right, the hashtag is Heidi Trumps Trump. No, you trumped yourself, girl. You failed. Don't get into this arena. You're not going to win. You know what? Trump didn't even respond because he knew, oh, I won this. I won this. Yeah, so Heidi Klum trumps herself. Did you hear what happened with Rosie O'Donnell this week? The pig. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? That's a quote. Quote. Hashtag. Not hashtag. Air quotes. Air quotes. That's
all y'all.
That's a Trump quote that she's a pig. But anyway, so yeah. So apparently, oh man, I'm gonna get into the weeds here.
I don't know much about it, but I know she went missing.
Okay, so her daughter goes missing, and they can't find her. So of course, as a parent, a concerned parent. By the way, this girl 17 or something. She's a older teenager, so almost an adult. She goes missing, and massive search. Rosie O'Donnell goes public and says, "Oh my gosh, she's missing. Please find her. She's mentally handicapped, or she's mentally challenged, or whatever the word she said." The word she used was, she's suffering from a mental illness, and not ADD. It's something more serious.
She's got the blue placard with the wheelchair on the car.
Maybe she may have the blue placard. Maybe she just she needs a good parking. I don't know. It's very possible. But then somebody pointed out on the internet that Rosie O'Donnell has the type of thinking, the mental, her ideology, to where, and also she's very headstrong. She's very, very opinionated.
She wears the pants in the family.
Right. She's the type of person. Oh, I'm sorry. I know we could hear Brian. I'm responding to Brian when he talks, and yeah. So Rosie O'Donnell wears the pants in the family. Here's the thing. Brian's trying to give you a laugh. She's wearing something else that would be unmentionable. And here's what somebody said, though. Is it possible that there's nothing wrong with this girl? And by the way, she was found, and the quote was that she was found of sound mind. Interesting. She ran away to her boyfriend's house. And when they found her, they asked her, "Were you okay? Were you coerced?" Of sound mind. This is a girl who was raised by Rosie O'Donnell and whoever else might have been in Rosie O'Donnell's life.
There was a huge article.
There's a huge article about
grown children raised by lesbian parents. Okay.
Yeah, and I've had experience with this myself. So Mr. Producer said that there is an article written about children being raised by lesbian parents, 2 women. I don't know about 2 men, but I have personal experience with a child that was being raised by 2 lesbian women. I don't know about destroyed, because this girl that they were raising was really young at the time, maybe eventually destroyed, but there were like, they adopted this girl from Russia, and it doesn't matter whether she was adopted from Russia or wherever, but this girl was depending on these 2 women for parentage. And it was interesting because I thought that the behavior of these 2 women was a little different, not because they're gay, but just the whole situation was different. They had trouble. They had trouble with the raising of this girl. You know, at one point, one of the mothers could not swim. Okay, and this girl couldn't either because she was only 5, but she loved the water. So they put a life jacket on her, and she would jump in the pool, climb out, jump in, climb out. All week we were on vacation with this family, and yeah, she loved it. She couldn't wait to get in her bathing suit, get the life jacket on, and then jump in the pool time and time and time again. Finally, one time she runs out, didn't realize she didn't have her life jacket on. Jumps in, and the one mother, she doesn't swim either. And she has a meltdown and starts screaming, "Oh my gosh, she's drowning, she's drowning. Somebody get her, somebody get her." And so one of us jumped in the pool and pulled her out and said, "Hey, you gotta check, make sure you have your life jacket on." But just I don't know, man. If I couldn't swim, I'm jumping in anyway. If it's my child, no way am I gonna stand there and watch my child. Oh well, this pool got deep. It was a deep pool. It actually was renovated several years later to not have any part that is more than 5.5 or 6 feet deep. That's the new trend now. I don't know if it's a liability thing. But pools back in the day, if you ever go on vacation to Florida or whatever, they all had diving boards. So they needed a part that was at least 8 foot deep and then a shallow section. And that's how this pool was. You could tell at one point it had a diving board. And, of course, it was removed because of liability, people breaking their necks or whatever. So for years and years and years, there was just a deep end and a shallow end. Well, they're getting away from that now. They're renovating pools all over the place to where there are no deep sections at all because now you can use more of the pool. You can walk around, and you can't walk. You can't wait. Nobody likes to doggy paddle in the deep end. And very few people dive in anyway. So anyway, there was a deep section at the time. And I don't know, just the behavior. My daughter fell in, and I don't care if I could swim or not. She's sinking to the bottom. She's not swimming up. She doesn't know how. I'm jumping in, and I'm figuring out a way. I'll figure it out later. Somebody can come rescue me. But in the meantime, I'm going in, and I'm going to try to shove her out. But if it's 8 foot deep. But they don't know. People don't know how to swim. They're going to panic when they get in. But, gosh, I'm not going to. Could you imagine standing on the side of a small pool with a deep end, watching your child drown because there's nobody around? Now, there were a lot of people around, and somebody ended up jumping in. As soon as they figured out what was going on, they jumped in. But, man, I couldn't stand on the side of a pool and watch my child drown just because if I try to do something about it, I may drown too. Just couldn't do it. But maybe it had nothing to do with her being gay, but it just was weird. It was just weird.
The article that I read, though, said that these adults now said that their lives have been destroyed by being
Oh, that's unfortunate. So the producer's telling me that the adults of that were raised by gay couples are saying that their life was destroyed. I don't know, man. I mean, at some point you got to take responsibility, Right. So there's a recovery. There's several years of having to fix what is all messed up or undo what was messed up, being raised. And I'm sure you're going to find a parade of people raised by a gay couple that are like, what are you talking about? We're fine. We're normal. I'm successful. I'm happy. So there may be a gay parade. No. Me personally, I do not believe that you can be raised to be gay. And the reason I don't believe that, and I've said this a million times before, is because at some point in my childhood, I started having different feelings when I would look at a girl than I ever did in the past. Because at one point, when you're a child, you look at a girl and you're like, ew, cooties, right? And then you get to a stage, maybe 12, 13, 14, where you're like, wow, man, I'm having weird feelings going on in my brain when I look at that girl, and what happens is I think it's involuntary, right? I did not look at a girl and say, I better like that and be attracted to that, because if not, then I would be gay. No, instead, right, the hormones kick in, and all of a sudden you have these happy feelings when you look at the opposite sex. My argument is in a gay person, you look at a girl and you don't have those. I'm sorry, if you're a man or a boy, you look at a girl or look at the opposite sex, you don't have the feelings that I had, but you do have those feelings if you look at somebody of the same sex. That would make you gay, and I would say that that's involuntary, that you don't choose that. Now, where do you go from there? That begs the question, is gayness or being gay, is it a mental disorder? And I would say that if your brain is releasing hormones and endorphins and whatever else to make you feel funny inside when you look at the same sex, there's something wrong with your brain. There has to be.
Psychologists that have come out and said this, and the liberals have just banned.
You have to. How could... Okay, when I was that age and I look at the opposite sex and I have an involuntary reaction, my brain sends endorphins and hormones to my body that make me feel really good when I look at or talk to or engage in the opposite sex. but the opposite has happened with gay people, then there's something wrong. There's wires crossed. I mean, how could you not make that argument? That being said, do I think they need a handicap placard? No. I don't think they need to get handicap parking for having funny feelings for the same sex. But it's funny. You know what opened my eyes to that phenomenon? When a gay person told me that when it was a gay man, when he thinks or imagines in his mind having a physical relationship with a woman, he said it makes him sick. And I thought to myself, oh, that's fascinating. Because that's exactly the way I would think if I think about having a physical relationship with a same sex. It actually makes me physically sick to even think about it. He actually said that that's the way he feels when he thinks about having the relationship that way with a woman.
American Psychiatric Association, APA.
Oh, so Mr. Producer's telling me that psychologists have come out, in America, have come out and said that, oh, this is back in 1973. Okay, so back in the day. Declassification. What? We have a declassified document?
Of mental disorder, no longer.
Oh, so before that, it was a mental disorder. And then after this article came out, a bunch of psychologists came out and said it's not a mental disorder?
We are officially saying no.
Okay, so the official opinion of American psychologists and psychology in general is that gayness is not a mental disorder. It's a way you look at it. I look at it like, hey, if you're telling me it's involuntary and I can compare it to my experiences of coming of age, whereas it's opposite. And some people say, why would you call it a disorder? There's nothing wrong with it. They can like who they want to like. Well, here's where the disorder part comes in. If the soundbite of do you believe that so the question becomes, do you believe that a man is designed to be penetrated by another man?
Agent Hurley?
Oh, right, wrong one. So, yeah, we have that soundbite of the do you believe that a man? The question was asked: do you believe that a man was designed to be penetrated by another man?
She went on to say a woman's body is meant for that.
Right. Okay, and so a woman's body was designed to be penetrated by a man. So, for you to be doing the wrong things with the body parts, and by wrong I mean, does it produce anything? I mean, what are we doing this for? Is it going to produce a child? A man on man or a woman on woman does not do anything. It doesn't further the race. It doesn't improve us as a species. There's nothing happening. And if everybody was gay, we would go extinct. So that being said, there's obviously something not working properly because that's not the right way to do it. They may argue, hey, what's right and what's wrong? I think, to me, it feels right and it's right.
Do what feels right.
Do what feels right. That is the liberal way. So anyway, that's my long-winded thing on Rosie O'Donnell. So for those of you listening at home, do you know who is running? Did you hear who is running in South Carolina?
On the Democrat ticket.
No, independent. On the independent ticket, running against Rand Paul, Lindsey Graham, George Pataki, Mike Huckabee, those are the conservatives running, is leading?
He's beating all of those Republicans by a poll.
All right, so guess who it is. It is
Deez.
That's right. So that is the joke you complain about. This is not a joke. There is a man, woman, whatever thing. Oh, he legally changed his name. He's running for, what is he running for?
Deez Nutz.
No, he's not running for Deez Nutz. His name is Deez Nutz, and he is running. So it's no longer a joke. It is actual reality. And Deez Nutz could be, it's not governor, it's president?
President of the United States.
And he's leading in South Carolina against.
Well, more than leading, he's beating percentage-wise those Republican candidates.
Okay, but he's an independent, so he's probably going to win the, plurality? Yeah. Because he's going to be running against, as a third party, independent, against the Democrats and the Republicans. He doesn't have a primary opponent, so he's going to be there on the ballot. His legal name is Deez Nutz, and he may actually be president one day? Is he running for president?
Yeah.
Oh, wouldn't
they said he's trailing Hillary?
He's trailing Hillary by just a little bit. So Hillary's beating him by just a slight margin. All right, so here's my take on Deez Nutz. Okay, so for those of you young whippersnappers out there that think you invented the whole Deez Nutz thing, let me let you in on a little secret. That soundbite that you heard Mr. Producer play, that is from the album The Chronic by Dr. Dre, which was released in 1992. Probably most of you kiddies that are... I play Clash of Clans. Lots of young people play that all the way down to age 9, 8. There are thousands of people that play Clash of Clans whose username is Deez Nutz. Thousands.
If you were born in 92, it'd make you 23 today.
Okay, so if you're 23 or younger, you weren't even born yet when Snoop Dogg... the voice you heard in that soundbite is Snoop Dogg, but he's doing that on Dr. Dre The Chronic's album. Dr. Dre's album, The Chronic. And I don't even know if he stole it from somewhere else. However, nobody heard it before The Chronic came out. When that came out, every other question that people would ask you, they were trying to get you to say what, who. If the answer to the question is who, the response was always every time. And it's all of a sudden these kids are doing it nowadays and they're acting like it's this new hip thing. And I'm like, dude, you guys are stuck in the 90s and you weren't even born yet. So anyway, it's become popular. It's totally resurged like you wouldn't believe. And what it has caused is somebody changing their name to Deez Nutz and winning an election. Or leading. They're leading all the Republicans.
And thank you government schools for these stupid-ass kids.
Yeah, and here's the funny thing. Even though we were just going hog wild with the Deez Nutz back in the 90s, if somebody ran for president named Deez Nutz back in the 90s, no, they wouldn't have even come close. You know who's voting for Deez Nutz? It's 21, 22, 23, 24-year-olds, and all the guys that are in their late 30s who remember Deez Nutz back in the 90s. Deez Nutz! You should see the look on the producer's face when he played that last time. He's just like... I gotta just play it one more time, and this is annoying. But yeah, I honestly think that dumb Democrat, liberal progressives who are chronically stupid, and the reason I use the word chronically is because they're in their late 30s now, who loved Dr. Dre The Chronic back when they were in high school in the 90s, early 90s, are looking at this, and it's a joke. It's a joke to them. And for those of you who are the young millennials who are voting for Deez Nutz, let me tell you something. You are the reason why I advocate for the voting age to be 25 or older. And I think in most states it was.
I'm going to revert back to the original. You had to be a landowner.
Landowner? I'm okay with that. But, in that case, I'm also in favor of taxes only being imposed on landowners. Okay. If you want to be a progressive tax person, that's how you do it. Because you pay taxes as a percentage of the land that you own. All these poor people that have to rent don't pay a dime. They won't. I mean, in a way, if they're renting, it ends up coming out of them anyway. But no, I mean, you could gouge people who own land if you wanted to. You want to tax the rich? Get all the landowners. Yeah. So, there's your progressive tax thing. All right. So Deez Nutz is probably going to win the presidency. I don't even know any of his policies, and I guarantee you the people that are voting for him don't know either. Dennis Prager, Iran deal. I think we hit everything.
The problem is that I'm the President of the United States. I'm not the Emperor of the United States.
That is a problem, and that was I love that soundbite. So what did we hit?
I'm not. I have no idea. That's why we turned it over. What, like with a cloth or something? Well, no.
Oh, that Hillary. Oh, she just lost every millennial vote there. She lost by saying. Oh, do you think I heard it in my ear? Oh, I'm sitting here listening to it. Would they have heard it? Oh, so Hillary, if you didn't hear, was asked if she wiped her server, and she said, "What do you mean, with a cloth? Like what do you mean with a cloth?" And I know what she's trying to do. People that support her, no matter what, are going to be like, "Yeah, we know you're lying, but look at you, bobbing and weaving. They're not going to pin nothing on you." Okay. That's cool. They're going to support her, and they're going to even like her even more because of the lying and getting away with it part. That's cool, whatever. But there's going to be a lot of millennials who are kind of like, I'm on the fence, but I'm kind of leaning towards Hillary. I'm probably going to vote for her. I want to see history made. I want to see the glass ceiling broken, the first woman president. But I'm looking at other candidates. We're talking young millennials here who are, youngsters who are, they have the iPhones, they're all into technology, they know about not only websites, but web design, servers, all that stuff, their own hard drive on their own computer. When they hear her say, "What do you mean wipe clean? You mean like with a cloth?" It's already a problem that she's old. When they hear that, they're going to be like, "Oh, you really?" Their intelligence is going to be so insulted when they hear that. They're just going to be done. They're going to be done with her.
She went on this claim. She has no idea.
She's claimed. Oh, right. So the lie is, and the cover up is, I don't know what you mean. How could I be responsible for wiping? What is it? What did you call it? A server? How do you expect me to do stuff like that when I don't even know what it means to wipe a server, let alone what a server is? I don't know. You know what she's doing? That's sexist. She's sexist against herself. She's playing the dumb blonde valley girl. She's playing with the race card. The sex card. The dumb valley girl. What do you mean? I'm in that movie Clueless. I'm Alicia Silverstone. I have no idea. This is so 5 minutes ago. Dude, she's playing the dumb valley girl. Wow. So,
you want to hear what Mark Levin had to say about it?
Oh, Mark Levin commented on this? I should start listening to Mark Levin every night. But yeah, go.
She should have testify in front of it. Maybe she won't be so flip under oath. So should her aides. Apparently now their cell phones and the texting are missing. I don't even know how many servers we're talking about at this point. We have a server in a bathroom. We have a server in a barn. Here's the bottom line. That information belongs to the American people. That information we paid for. That information may or may not be classified. If it's classified, she's in bigger trouble. Even if it's not classified. If she has personal emails on a government server, they belong to us. Now, here's the section of the law that is most problematic for Hillary Clinton, the Federal Penal Code, Section 793. Whoever being entrusted with or having lawful possession or control of any document or information relating to the national defense through gross negligence, not purposeful intent, permits the same to be removed from its proper place of custody or delivered to anyone in violation of his trust or to be lost, stolen, obstructed, or destroyed, and so forth. Why do we not have a federal grand jury? Why do we have to learn all this piecemeal from the media? We don't even know what kind of investigation is going on. This is serious business. It's time for Obama to get off the damn golf course in Martha's Vineyard and do something about this.
Well, he's not going to do anything, and that's the problem. It's corruption for an administration in government, anybody in government, to purposely not do your job because the person who would be adversely affected is a buddy, or possibly blackmailing you, or, and that's no pun intended, or possibly that they paid you. They're a contributor. They're a contributor, yeah. If they contributed millions of dollars and all of a sudden they broke a law that they can only be charged for if you do something, and you willfully don't do something because it's a buddy, a contributor, or you're just being blackmailed to not do it. That is the very definition of corruption. It doesn't have to be just money changing hands. Just wow. Yeah, he's not going to do anything, but if what Mark Levin said was right, which he's always right when it comes to law, she's broken the law. There should be a federal grand jury, and she should be convicted. And if the sentence calls for prison, then she should go to prison for absolutely. Just like I believe Obama should be impeached. I'm not calling for him to go to prison, but he has clearly done some things that would require him to be impeached, and as such be eventually removed from office because of his impeachment. And they're not doing it. Not because of corruption in his case, but because of fear of having the race card pulled on you. Oh, yeah. So, do you have any other sound bites that I can
You may have seen that I recently launched a Snapchat account. I love it. I love it. Those messages disappear all by themselves.
Yeah, we played that earlier. Wow. That's rough. She's making a mockery out of what she's doing. The wiping the servers clean and lying about it, deleting emails, lying about it, doing whatever she can to get out of trouble. Pretty much. She pretty much you know what she's doing? She's now she's making what? Who does that? It's like, okay, say I don't know, any crime you want. Maybe I stole a bunch of stuff from you.
O.J. Simpson said he was looking for the wife's.
Oh, there you go. O.J. Simpson question on the golf course. Said, "What are you doing on the golf course? You're a murderer." He's like, "I'm looking for the killer." That is pretty much making a mockery of the whole thing. Looking for the killer on the golf course, huh? Yeah. So anyway. And that does it for this week. Listen to us every week at 5 o'clock on Sunday. It would be 5 Eastern for all you people overseas and around the country. We will be breaking news for you next week. Every week, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, smithradio.com, facebook.com/smithradio, and on Twitter, search Smith Radio. And iHeartRadio.
With unfathomable power.
What kind of power?
Unfathomable. It's without fathom.